That's Bodhi. They call him the Bodhisattva. He's a real searcher.
What's he searching for?
The ride. The ultimate ride.
Yo, what's up? What's up, y'all? Yo, internet already cashing out. Yo, what's going on? Y'all saw that. We do it live here. We do it live. And what's up, y'all? Glad everybody could be here with us today on this 3K stream celebration. What's up, Matty? How's it going?
Yes, 3K. Congratulations. That's massive. I'm doing well. Just trying to get over being sick. I've been sick since like Tuesday, so but hopefully my voice will hold out. But yeah, I've been excited to do this one. I just finished the movie, I don't know, like 30 minutes ago. So yeah, excited. It's fresh and ready to go.
We both got our blue blockers on here.
Yeah, I might have to switch to the other ones because these have a terrible glare.
No, those are cool. Yeah, you get your Killdozer shades on.
Yeah. The glare's bad on these two. Oh well.
Well, it's mid-afternoon. We usually don't stream in the afternoon. We usually do it at night. So hopefully, hopefully the cyber polygon won't cash us out here. But what's up, y'all? Thanks everybody for being here. Hope the volume's okay. I can't do anything about it. The fucking, excuse my language, folks. I cussed. I didn't mean to. Excuse me. I cussed. I didn't mean to. The affiliates are going to be mad. And I promise I won't do it again. All right. But I can't do, I fuck around with this shit so much. And having to reset it all the time. And it is what it is, as they say. But listen. Thanks for everybody for being here and for being here along the way. This is our 3K party. And of course, I got my good friend Matty here to help me break down Point Break. I thought it would be a breakdown Point Break. I thought it would be a good one to do just because it's my favorite movie of all time. And, if you want the ultimate, you got to be willing to pay the ultimate price. All right. It's not tragic to die doing what you love. So we're going to be doing Point Break. We just did True Detective 1 through 4. And it be what it be, says Jerry right there, exposing powerful lies. Everybody, hey, shouts out to everybody out there. KF, Rachel. Oh, there's Rachel. I'm going to send you the link in a second. Rachel, DPH, Jay, Jamie, Hasher, Spore, Ruckus, everybody, Jethro, Mixkey. People may get annoyed with me doing the shouts out, but you gotta. I'm thankful for my friends and the people who've supported us along the way. So yeah, and to Jerry right there. So everybody, Kristen. So it's been a ride. This is 2 years. This is we've been doing this channel here for 2 years. And let me shoot Mixie the link here. We've been doing this for 2 years, and we're at 200. This will cross 200,000 views. We're at 3,000 subscribers. So it's been good. It's been a good ride. It's been a wild ride. No way Bells is bigger than Waimea, bro. Right? So Matty, while I shoot Mick, hey, thank you to Ruckus out there. Really appreciate you. TNT Radio, alternate current radio, everybody. I've made a lot of friends, and we've been doing some serious. There's Jamie. Shouts out to Jamie right there. We've been doing some serious literary analysis, but this one's for fun. This one's for the special beings out there, for the high IQ book enjoyers, PBR Street Gang, the special beings, the Chad nerds, the OG granola wokesters, the Cotellians, everybody out there. This one should be fun. And this one, I'll just say right off the bat, this one, Point Break, it's for the boys, right? But it's for everybody. This is a classic movie. It's 1991, and I was talking to my buddy last night about it. This movie rocks so hard. And I saw it when I was 10 years old, summer before I was 11 years old, 1991. And it's got Anthony Kiedis in it, War Child, Bunker, Pappas, right? Utah, give me two. I know I've come across a lot of people in my life who use a fake name or whatever when you go to a restaurant, right? And they make reservations at Dorsia in the name of Johnny Utah. This is a classic movie. So you are not as used to this movie as I am, because I'm an old timer. I'm an old wise fella. So Matty, give us what are your impressions of this right off the bat? What do you think?
First impression. So I think I mentioned the other night when we were talking that I thought I'd seen this one at some point. I actually hadn't. So this was actually the first time I'd ever seen this. I was mixing up Point Break with another movie I watched in a hotel years ago. But this is maybe the ultimate dudes rock movie.
Yes.
It's got everything. It has it's got, because the plot, it almost it doesn't make sense, but it works so well, and it's got all the kind of over the top 90s sort of action stuff, some guy who's sitting in a toll booth or something, and then the car is coming careening towards it, and he dives out, and they just take the toll booth out. He falls through a woman's glass door while chasing a suspect. It's just all that kind of ridiculous, over the top kind of 90s action chase stuff that made the late 80s, early 90s action movies so good.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I've done a Heat analysis. I did an analysis of Heat 2, the book, which is being made into a movie, which is funny because I've done a lot of these works that I've done. They've made movies of them afterwards. Which is kind of, it was good that we did those at the time we did. I did an analysis of Killers of the Flower Moon last summer, and then the movie is up for the Oscars or whatever this year. Heat 2 is being filmed. We did White Noise. I did White Noise months before the movie came out, and so Point Break. They remade Point Break. They did a reboot, and I'm just not. That's all I'm going to say about it. Right? There's no point in it is what it is. Okay, we're talking about the classic here, and but yeah, the bank robbing aspect of this. It's a cops and robbers movie, right? It's been parodied. There's a play in LA with with a live Point Break. It's Patrick Swayze's. Swayze has got so much swag in this movie, right? It's incredible. It's his best movie. And we did Donnie Darko. Jim Bob and I did Donnie Darko, and that was one of his last movies. But this one is peak Swayze, and it's crazy because, this is against type. It's crazy that they even cast him in the movie at the time. He was in 80s, he was in Roadhouse and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. By the way, they're remaking Roadhouse with Jake Gyllenhaal. Have you seen that with Conor McGregor? It's about to come out. I mean, I'm going to see it because it looks like fun. I'm a movie enjoyer, but
Mhm.
you know, and I like Jake Gyllenhaal. He's a 1980 baby like me. But yeah, it's you know, it's a great movie, and it's Keanu Reeves. Like, it's weird how Keanu Reeves, the arc of Keanu Reeves' career, but back to the, I guess, cops and robbers aspect of it, you know, and the gang of surfers. Jay just did a stream the other night on the 90s, right? And what the 90s on like, especially on 90s music and culture creation, 90s grunge, Seattle. And this one is crazy because this is 1991. 1991 is a landmark year for all this stuff. Many of the huge albums of the 90s came out in 1991. It represented a total sea change in culture, in the way we think about, like, you know, if you're a teenager, people's worldview. I mean, it was totally different. It was the 80s were over, right? The end of the high concept Don Simpson era 80s movies was over. In 1991, this movie came out the same summer, I think at the same time as Terminator 2. And what's weird is that both movies are LA movies. They both involve, you know, they're both like cops. The cops are of course, the cops in Terminator 2 are the bad guys. The bad guy becomes a cop, which is crazy because as I did that stream with David Patrick Harry and Church of the Eternal Logos, and what he says is, well, what happens in the movie is, did you know that, just for a refresher, for Terminator 2, the scene where Arnie goes into the motorcycle bar and, you know, I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle, that was filmed not only across the street from the Rodney King event, but it was filmed the same night.
That it happened?
It was filmed at the same night, the same time that happened. The event with Rodney King and the cops was right outside. It was on the other side, and it was right there while that was happening. And what's crazy is that the new Terminator, right, the liquid metal, you know, liquid mercury Terminator, the bad guy, takes on a cop uniform. So it's weird how these things converge. Of course, it's not weird in terms of the movies are planned and, you know, culture creation happens, but it's weird how there's such a sea change. There's such a shift, you know, and Terminator 2, of course, let's look at the musical aspects before we get into the movie. Like Terminator 2 had the Guns N' Roses "You Could Be Mine" video that came out with Arnie in the music video. And things like that. You know, I did Predator last night, and what's crazy is that I now realize when I'm older is that those movies are R-rated movies, but they're aimed at people that were my age. They were aimed at 10 and 11-year-olds, right? They were clearly aimed at that, because when I saw Terminator 2, when I saw that video for "You Could Be Mine," I saw the premiere on MTV. Like, I was like, I went to Sam Goody Musicland. I bought a single version of the cassette tape. Like, it was everything that my friends and I talked about. It was like awesome. And then Edward Furlong plays a kid in the movie on a dirt bike. And then that's Guns N' Roses. That's 80s. That's Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. By the way, the banner on my channel, done by our friend iPack Arts, is from Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, which is the Raphael's portrait of the of Athens. But that was the end of the 80s. And then Point Break has Anthony Kiedis, and, you know, so we have Red Hot Chili Peppers, and it's kind of got some 80s rock music in it, but it's a 90s movie. It's very, very 90s. It's the total end of the 80s. It's a new thing. And the bank robbing aspect of the movie is, you know, that, like, watching the movies, it's supposed to be, you look at this and you go, these bad guys are very, very cool. Like, they are so cool. As Papa says, a group within a group. You'll know them when you see them. A group within a group. Right? Utah. 2 bricks coming up. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's get after it here. What do you think? When the movie starts, right? So you gave some of your first impressions of the movie, but do you remember much about the action and how it starts?
It started where it was like pouring down rain, and he was going through that, like the shooting obstacle course. I guess it was supposed to be in Quantico, up there in Virginia, which is kind of a callback to the end, or maybe it's not a callback, but it's like foreshadowing the last scene, I think, in the film in a way. And I
Good
thought it was
point.
kind of odd that he was out there like in the rain. It was like, why would you be doing this? Unless it's one of those things where you have to like train for all kinds of weather. But yeah, it sort of sets the stage as like this guy's, fresh out of the academy. He's never, and Gary Busey's character even says later on, says something like, oh, it's been, and they have this whole, the raid where he's like, oh, it's the first time without, but he says something like it's your first time. Like up until now, it's just been paper targets or something like that. So it sort of sets it up as he's, but he's very good because like at the end, the guy, has the stopwatch or whatever it was, and it was like,
100% Utah.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
And so that it sort of sets him up
Yeah.
as like he's
got the meme. Yeah.
Yeah, right. He's
Yeah.
not he's not a veteran. He's kind of being dropped into this. This is kind of, I guess, maybe his exit from Quantico.
Yeah, you make a great point. And this is why we have you here, Matty, because fresh eyes on the movie. I've seen the movie a trillion times. So when you do that and you sort of live that through your youth, you forget, like with fresh eyes, some of the aspects of the movie that convey this sense of, first of all, there's a Vietnam aspect to the movie, right? Because Gary Busey mentions how I was Quezon. He's a Vietnam vet, but there's a clear difference in generations. There's Gary Busey. We're going to see he's the older fella. He's Pappas. He's Angelo Pappas. Then there's Harp, who's the boss, who's kind of a middle boomer.
John
and then
C.
you
McGinley.
and then you get Keanu Reeves, who is clearly like, he's the Gen X new generation of FBI guys. And like you said, paper targets, and it begins with rain and ends with rain. And that's the 50-year storm, right? So the 50-year storm that Bodhi talks about, when we get to that, at Bells Beach, Australia, shouts out to DJ out there, is the life of the characters. They're in the storm. So we're entering the bands of the storm, right, going into it, because there's rain falling, and then the entire purpose of the movie is like we're in the eye of the storm, and then at the end of the film we're going back out, right? We're getting the edges of it. And of course, yeah, you said Quantico. It's interesting how like the so the movie's directed by Catherine Bigelow with Avatar. And, shouts out to Jamie out there. She says, she sends 499. She says, there will never be a more 90s character name than Johnny Utah. Absolutely. Absolutely true. I mean, because the movie's a rock and roll movie. Rock and roll, they even say. It's a rock and roll movie. But Johnny Utah is kind of a Tony Montana, but for the 90s, and he's on the other side, right? And he's an athlete. He's a former Ohio State quarterback, right? And which is so funny because I know a kid who is about to go pro. He's a running back. He's a star running back for Ohio State. Shouts out to Travion Henderson out there. And so it's interesting that we get this part of the movie where the guys recognize him. So Johnny Utah's thing, of course, is that he's a clean cut kid. He's middle class. He's got parents, and he goes from Ohio State, where he's a quarterback, his knee gets folded back. And then he joins the FBI young, and he's supposed to be an alpha going into these things. And it's a recruitment video for the FBI. It is, right? Basically, because we get this guy, he's great looking. It's Keanu Reeves. He's shooting paper targets. He's in the rain, but he's, and then he goes undercover as a surfer, and it makes it look like, oh, this is so cool. This is what you'll be doing. Right. But of course, one of the things about the movie is that, of course, the FED embeds himself with the bank robbers, and he's robbing the banks. So he's part of it, and they try and kind of skate away from that, but he is still part of the gang, which is crazy. Because remember that video a few years ago, it was in 2020 there was an Asian family driving through New York City, and then they were surrounded by a motorcycle club. They're a club. They're a club. They're a club. And there's a road rage incident, and the guy that got out and ended up smashing the car in, they said was an FED, right? He was the leader of the thing, of course, right? So of course they do that, in the movie. So
that also.
Go ahead. No,
I was going to interject real quick. That also brings to mind Bad Boys 2, the Gabrielle Union's character, where she's working for the DEA and is like trying to set up this huge coke deal
Yeah.
to that's going to like make her career is like basically setting up this huge cocaine transaction.
Yeah, that's a great point to bring up Bad Boys, because Bad Boys, of course, is a Bruckheimer production, right? And that's post. Well, they were making it during Don Simpson, but it's really a post Don Simpson movie, and we see a shift from the 80s to the 90s, even with the high concept with the death of Don Simpson. He died, Don Simpson OD'd, and we no longer get like the Top Gun and Crimson Tide movies, and now we go into crime, and eventually we go into, what was the movie, 13 Days, which was the Libya event, right? Which is a Bruckheimer event, but that's not Don Simpson, right? But there's a clear delineation between the two eras. Tom Sizemore, as we call him here. Tom had this friend Ryan back in 8th grade. I remember he goes, "You like Tom Sizemore?" I was like, "Fuck yeah, I like Tom Sizemore, dude." So I've called him that ever since then. But Tom Sizemore fucking rules. 2 bricks, right? What does he say? 2 months. No, he says everything's said twice in the movie. Right, there's always 2s in the movie. He says, "You know how long I've been? Oh yeah, how could they have been robbing banks in here when they were in Fort fucking Lauderdale, right? 3 months, 3 months." with John C. McGinley standing in the background, like co-opting. He's co-signing everything that he says. He's like, yeah, you didn't think about that, did you, Pappas? Huh? Utah, you didn't think about that, did you? He's such a dick.
That was funny. And that's a great scene. It's funny though, because like all these agencies, or at least, it's indicated through media for whatever that's worth, that they're sort of at war with each other. Like they don't communicate. So it's like the idea that he would have any idea that they'd been surveilling them for 3 months, working undercover. It's like nobody's supposed to know that. So I thought it was a great scene, but it was that was kind of it was kind of funny.
It was funny. I mean, because look, they did the background checks. They have a database. They do the background checks on the guys. They find out that there's meth and all this stuff involved. He calls them basically a gang of, what can we call them? Guys who were fans of that country in Germany.
Actually,
right?
Sorry, go ahead.
They're surf Nazis, right? Have you seen the movie Surf Nazis Must Die?
No, I've read about that one.
It's pretty good. Yeah,
because I've done a ton of reading and on research on groups like this, and that's actually really interesting, because a lot of the early, because that was like kind of a real thing, like back in the 80s, you had these sort of basically gangs that most of them came up from punk rock and hardcore scenes, is mostly like middle class, working class white kids who basically formed these gangs, and a lot of them weren't necessarily centered around surfing, but they were like there were a lot of surfers who were in these gangs, because they were in the areas like Hermosa Beach, things like this. And it's funny because they mention that they were like, they liken themselves to like a DEATH squad, and that was just because it was actually a gang in LA called the LAD squad. And so anyway, and then there's been a lot of, or not a lot of, but there's even like a more recent group that's basically waged a campaign of terrorism against people who try to surf on their beach. They basically carved out this section of a beach somewhere in Southern California, and it'll just like harass people and like throw rocks at them and slash their tires and stuff if they try to come into. It's very like local zone, which you kind of get in the film. It's a very local zone, like when he like when Johnny gets
back to the valley, man. Yeah.
Right. And so anyway, I just thought it was kind of an interesting thing. And there's actually sort of it's small in the realm of surfing, but the sort of Naz eyes, that kind of symbolism and ideology is prevalent somewhat in surfing, particularly in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, I got my thing here. So I'm going for my aesthetic here for this Point Break. I'm wearing my OBX beater. Right. This one's for the bros. All right. I got my OBX beater on here, fellas. Right.
Oh, and yes, Edward III makes a really good point that they also love amphetamines and extreme sport. That is another big factor with a lot of those groups that kind of came out of these punk rock scenes, ended up getting more and more into criminal activity and, Naz ideology. And a lot of them do, if you read the research, if that's to be believed, like they are involved in cooking and trafficking methamphetamine.
Yeah, they only live to get radical, right? They'll never understand what it's about, right? Some people, what does he say? Some people jab a vein for it, right? You ready for some? What does he say? You ready for a little night operation, right? They go a little stealth operation. He gives them the stealth surfboard. That's
Right.
so fucking sweet, dude. It's so sweet. No, no, you're right though. I mean, it's these guys are surf Nazis and they're into all kinds of bad shit, right? As he says, they got the Metallica. Kiedis is wearing a Union Jack bathing suit, Reebok pumps, and he's got a Metallica 1 poster on his wall, and he's like fucking rocking hard on his Walkman, and the guy comes in, throws the Steyr AUG in his face. It's the feds, man. It's Bunker Weiss. It's the War Child.
That was such a weird where he looks like he's having a seizure on the bed while listening to Metallica or Anthrax or whatever it was. That was wild.
Yeah, and I read I've talked about this before, but Anthony Kiedis' autobiography, Scars Issue, he talks about the filming of the movie. And Kiedis and Flea are together in a bunch of movies. They're in this movie, The Chase, with Christy Swanson, which back in 1994 was on HBO all the time. Like, you couldn't pick your movie. And that movie with Charles Sheen, it has Charles Sheen, Henry Rollins, Anthony Kiedis and Flea, and Christy Swanson. And dude, Christy Swanson is so fine in this movie. It's so good. It was great for like when you're like 14 and watch this. I don't want to go back and watch it now because it's probably not great, but it was a great movie. But Kiedis was in a bunch of movies, and of course, Anthony Kiedis' dad, Spider, was in Lethal Weapon. He's one of the guys that does the coke deal with Mel Gibson. And Spider Kiedis, his dad was he says in the book, was a dealer to the stars and like hung out at the Rainbow Room and Sunset, in LA. And so Kiedis was into this, but when they filmed Point Break, like he didn't make some of the sessions, the stage combat fight sessions, and that's why all the other guys, when they get in the fight, and Kiedis is just kind of thrown out, and you see him fall, do like a flip out of the bushes. That's where Pappas sees him, and that's like all that Kiedis they would let him do in the scene. Because
I didn't even pick up on that he didn't actually fight in the scene.
Yeah, but he was perfect for the movie, and he had that cool haircut.
Oh, remember, the haircut was great.
Shaved on it's so cool, dude. That would be a waste of time, right? He's so cool. But Kiedis fit with this because he was he's a surfer. He's from LA. So yeah, Spider. That's his name, Spider. So that was a street name, I guess, what everybody called him. He's the one who introduced Anthony. Well, anyway. Even the way the movie begins is cool because we get the intro music and we get Largo Entertainment. I think this is the first Largo Entertainment. And even the way that the movie production company logo appears on the screen out of this red line is very cool. You go into it thinking Zen, right? There's something very Zen about the movie, of course, because Bodhi is the Bodhisattva. And there's a weird contrast between what we were just talking about, which is the surf Nazis, and Bodhi, who is this Eastern, kind of embodiment of like 90s interest in Zen Buddhism and surfing, and he's like a neo hippie, right? But look at what he ends up. Of course, remember the Charlie Manson shirt, right? Never trust a hippie. Look what he ends up doing in the movie. He's the leader of this gang. All they do, man, there are people out there in their metal coffins, right? I love the metal coffins line about the cars. Seems like something a 12-year-old kind of wrote, but the movie was directed by Catherine Bigelow, who was married to Jim Cameron. So again, we have Catherine Bigelow, Jim Cameron, Terminator 2, and Point Break coming out at the same time, which is crazy. Catherine Bigelow later did The Hurt Locker, of course, and then the big propaganda movie Zero Dark 30, and Jim Cameron doing Avatar. So they're well embedded with these interests, and I think that it is really crazy that this movie got made in the first place because the plot doesn't seem like it would be something that they would ever greenlight, even though it's Hollywood and they're so ridiculous. The names are outlandish, and the plots and the narratives are outlandish. Like you can imagine them coming to the studio and being like, look, we got a movie about a gang of surfer, bank robber, gang, surf Nazi people. But they're like the good guys, but the bad guys. And then we got this guy, and the hero's name is Johnny Utah. It almost seems too much that they would pour all this money into the movie and make this movie, but it did well. I mean, and it's been, hugely popular. It was, I guess it got done because of what it pushed in terms of setting the theme for the 90s. It definitely tapped into what the 90s were and became. And again, it's what Bruckheimer said in the book High Concept, which is when he was hanging out on the pier when they were filming Top Gun, and there was a reporter, and the reporter said, I came up to him, and there were all these teenagers down below, and they were all, in the water and surfing and stuff. And Bruckheimer was kind of looking at him, and the guy said, you're looking at, you're looking at who you're trying to, your potential audience, aren't you? Like you think they'll love the movie. And Bruckheimer was like, no, you don't understand. We determine what they're going to like. And he was right because and so that's not only culture creation, but that's what any artist attempts to do, right? Who's even a great film artist who's dealing with all these interests in Hollywood and stuff. But essentially that maintains the aspect of what the auteur was in 70s film, in which Don Simpson and Bruckheimer kind of railed against, and they revitalized Hollywood. And then the 90s, we get kind of a mixture of those two things, which is interesting. But yeah, so we get the rain falling, we get the storm, and we see that it's kind of slow motion. We get this amazing music. It has such an amazing score. And shouts out to Tom is a Flat Circle out there whose song the Bodhisattva ambient wave that I played at the very beginning of the stream. You guys go check out his channel. He's got great ambient music relating to films. I mean, he's got Tom is a Flat Circle as his name. So we just did True Detectives. That's pretty cool. So please go there and check out his stuff. But we get this awesome synth, kind of synth ambient scape at the beginning of the movie. And we see that Utah is drenched in rain. And then what happens? What happens from there? We see him clean cut. He's 100%. Now he's out of Quantico, and it's his first day on the job, and he is in LA. And
meets John C. McGinley like right out of the gate. Who's a great actor. Like that dude, he's so good. Like he was great on Scrubs. He was great in Wall Street. He's great in this. He's one of those people who's just good in everything. Like he plays a very good kind of like over the top, kind of stressed out sort of character. And they kind of have this sort of banter. Like there's a lot of banter in the movie. The dialogue is very kind of banter heavy. There's a lot between there's a Pappas and Utah, and then McGinley's character, and basically everybody. And so it's kind of funny because he says something like right out of the gate, like, "Oh, you have like a complete breakfast, no sugar, no this or that." And then like almost immediately, Utah reaches for a donut.
Yeah. Are you receiving my signal, Agent Utah? 100%. I love these things. You're a real blue flame special, aren't you? Right. There's one way that we catch all these bank robbers, right? By crunching data. And that's an interesting line because this is what they're doing in terms of the counter, the relationships amongst the characters and conflicts is they're saying that the FBI is centered on data, right? They have a huge data collection. And of course that, we know about the things that have happened with FEDs and all those things, and with Titan Point and Snowden, all these things, right? And CIA and data and collecting massive amounts of data. Of course, all this is like analog. They're barely computers, and the office is computerized. They're supposed to be on the cutting edge, right? But the counterpoint to that is Utah is human, and he's all heart. And then we meet Pappas, by the way, who's like all heart. So he's not he's not physical, even though he does do this awesome respect for my elders, plain and simple, right? Later on, but he's all heart. And McGinley is supposed to be the typical G-man of the 90s. So he's clean cut. He's fairly young. I mean, he's older, He's supposed to be the old authoritarian figure, but he isn't that old now. Watching it when you look back, and he's taking him on a tour through the offices, just like what's the fucking guy's name? Now I lost it. The dude who did The West Wing. He wrote The West Wing.
Oh, Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah, it's an Aaron Sorkin move, right? Because when you track them, they're doing tracking shots through the office, and they're basically walking in squares. And he's doing quick, 45-degree, walking down the aisles. And he even, when he says the donut thing, like he says, "Are you reading my signal?" And like he hadn't even picked up the donut yet. So he's almost jumping the line, but it's showing that he's aware of what's happening, and then turns around and he's like, "Look, we toe the line." He's saying, "We toe the line here. Everything is data. Everything's, this is the straight man." And I think that part of this is recruitment. There's an obvious recruitment into this, which is that, yeah, it's a recruitment for the bad guys watching the movie. Like, these surfers are cool or whatever. And for extreme sports, I mean, MTV Sports like came out of this movie, right? This was it. It has rock climbing. It has that shot of rock climbing. There's surfing. There's skydiving in the movie. It's the best skydiving movie of all time, right? Speed. You're a speed star. But it's also a recruitment for the people going into the other thing, which is the bad guys, right? Into this office, and it's like their whole history happened, but now we're in the 90s and there's a new kind of threat happening, right? And then they find out about the bank robbing. So now we cut and our perspective changes, and we see there's a bank robbing, and we see the ex-presidents.
Was it Reagan, Nixon? Who are the other two? I can't.
Well, first shouts out to Ruckus out there who drops $5 and says, "Was there an increase in bank robberies or FBI enlistment after the movie came out? Reportedly, after release of Gone in 60 Seconds, car theft went way up." I'm sure there was. Yeah, and we've talked about it on Boiler Room. Somebody in the chat, can you look that up for me and see if the statistics went up? Because I can't. If I even try it right here, I know it's going to freeze us all up. So can somebody tell us if there's an MSM about bank robberies afterwards? I mean, I just did The Place Beyond the Pines, which is another bank robbery movie. Of course, Heat was the landmark 1995 Michael Mann movie about bank robbers, and they even say in that movie, right? He's like, your money's insured by the federal government. You're not going to lose a dime. Think of your families, right? There's a flip side to that coin. What if you do got me boxed in? So it makes it look cool. And yet, these guys are extreme sports people who are doing it for philosophical and ideological reasons. It doesn't seem to even be about the cash. It's not like they are like, you never even see them driving, right? Except for in the stolen car, like for in the burn car or whatever, which is like a Lincoln. They're driving a Lincoln. But that's it. I mean, they don't live in incredible homes. Bodhi has like house parties. It's an open house. Bodhi's house reminds me, I went to this surfing village in Costa Rica where Flea has a house like up on the hill. And there was a bar that I went to that was a lot like Bodhi's house here. And it wasn't like intentional. It just was like that. I was saying, met this surfer named Shredder in Costa Rica. But it's a lot like that. It's just, mi casa, su casa, right? Vaya con Dios. And so anyway, there's this dichotomy between the two. There's constant interplay, and we see the robbery happen. And yeah, they're the ex-presidents. And you were mentioning who they were. Well, of course, Patrick Swayze is Reagan. He's the leader of these guys. We're just coming out of the 80s since the end of the Reagan era. So now we have the most recent. We have Reagan. They're not going to use Bush because Bush was still president when this happened. They got Bush. And what's interesting, you realize that the presidents, the ex-presidents in the movie die in order of when they were president. So we have LBJ, LBJ, Nixon, Carter, and Reagan. And we have Gromit, Nathaniel Roach, and then Bodhi. playing those characters, and they are eliminated in that order, which is interesting. And of course, Bodhi is armed with it's cowboy. He's a cowboy, right? And it's cops and robbers, but he's got like a 6-shooter. I know it's not, but he's got like a 6-shooter. The other guys, they never go to the vault, like in Heat. Why are we going to the vault? We never go to the vault. They just rob the cash from the drawers, and they're in and out in 60 seconds flat. But then what we see we cut to the videotape, the surveillance tape, and we see Gromit moon the camera. And what does it say? What's written?
It's
have a nice day or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. And yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna add, you said that Bodhi had a 6-shooter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, didn't Reagan do a bunch of Westerns? Wasn't that his film career? Isn't that how he got his start? Yeah,
that's a great point. Dude, I never put that together. Yes, he did. Yeah, Reagan was a famous screen actor and became president of Screen Actors Guild, and then governor, and then president. But yeah, Reagan was in a bunch of cowboy movies. He was he's in one where I forget the cavalry movie he was in, but he also was in Win One for the Gipper, right? Where it's a football movie. And he even looks like Johnny Utah in that movie. So he's both the Johnny Utah. Maybe that's why Johnny Utah and Bodhi are kind of find themselves as like blood brothers in this thing. Brothers to the bone, right, McMasters? He says in Tombstone. And of course, Reagan's most famous stunt as a cowboy was, of course, I actually have it as a fridge magnet. Was after what's his name? The guy who's free and has the YouTube channel now. John Hinckley Jr. Right after the John Hinckley Jr. event, which Shane Gillis talked about, right, and with Louis C.K. in their comprehensive history of the presidents. Have you seen that? Have you seen that podcast?
I've heard about it. I haven't listened to it though.
It's very good. It's like I've never cared. Presidential history is one of my soft areas in Jeopardy. But Louis C.K. apparently knows everything about the presidents, and it's like a 6-hour podcast, and they're sitting in his mid-century home, like he's behind a desk, and Shane Gillis is there, and Louis C.K. says what happened was after that event, Reagan, and you can watch it. You can still watch it. You can see the Secret Service pull out Uzis and all this stuff. But Reagan, they threw him in the limo, and then they realized that he'd been shot, right? And as the story goes, and then so instead of going to Walter Reed, they had to go to a hospital, the closest hospital. So they veered off. This is when they had the crisis about the chain of command, because I think who was it who claimed to be in charge, but it was over Bush, the vice president. They had this big crisis about who was in charge. But Reagan, and not to mention the fact that Bush and Hinckley Sr. were. But anyway, but Louis C.K. says the best part of this was he gets out of the limo, and they wanted to bring a stretcher and roll him in. And Reagan said, "No, I'm going to walk in." And he said, on camera, there's the people are hanging outside of this city hospital, and the guy goes, "Hey man, hey, it's Reagan, man, yeah." And Reagan goes, "Hello," and walked in and collapsed. And then afterwards, the big propaganda, payoff was that just a few days later, they had film of, the shots of him riding a cowboy. So it's like a cowboy president. That was the image in the 80s. Reagan's a cowboy. It's it's America, all that stuff. But he's riding a cowboy on his ranch. He's riding a horse on his ranch. That didn't sound right.
I knew what you meant.
That's like in Family Guy when they're talking about the missile pact, the Reagan Gorbachev missile pact. And Reagan says, "Well, there was definitely a missile and something definitely got picked." I'm sorry, folks. I'm sorry. That's bawdy, but no, but
it's not a proper stream if there's not at least one Family Guy reference.
Yes. They said he was he was riding horses and chopping wood, which is much better than the truth, which was the opposite. So anyway, what were we saying?
We're talking about the bank robber. They were doing the bank, and it's interesting because sorry, folks, I'm going to keep coughing, trying to get over being sick. But no, it was interesting because you mentioned like they don't live in extravagantly. It's almost as if the money, it's like it just disappears. Like, are they just burning it like KLF style? Like, what are they doing? Because one of the things is later on in the movie where Bodhi mentioned something about like, oh, we're doing, like you mentioned, the whole thing about the people in their metal coffins and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost felt like it was kind of like it felt shoehorned in that it was almost kind of like, it was like a sort of Fight Club-esque kind of brief, not really a monologue, but it was that line. It felt sort of like the Fight Club-esque, and it's like, yeah, what are they doing with the movie? Because with the money, because they're clearly, it's like, okay, yeah, they go, skydiving, and that's relatively expensive, but like, so what? Like people who have normal jobs do that kind of stuff, and so I don't know if it's just because there's mention to them being like adrenaline junkies. Is it just going and throwing the doors open, getting everybody on the ground? Is it just the rush of trying to? I don't think they ever really deal with exactly what the motive is, aside from paying some lip service to some anti-establishment kind of ethos.
Yeah, that line is my least favorite line in the movie. It's obviously a fantastic. The movie is perfect, except for that one line. Really kind of throws it off because, like you said, it's kind of seems kind of, I don't know, put on. And the other thing I was just thinking here, I'm just looking this up real quick, is that Gary Busey, he says the reason for their funding, the reason for their bank robbing is to fund their endless summer. He says, remember that? And then he jumps he jumps on the desk.
That's right. Yeah.
But Gary Busey, I don't think Gary Busey was in Endless Summer. Have you ever seen Endless Summer?
No, I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, Endless Summer is, God, you got to go through a million years of Gary Busey movies to get to this movie. He's been in so many movies. Have you ever seen that movie Bulletproof that he was in? It's so hard to find. 1987 Bulletproof. It's where he says, he shows over, butthorn.
No,
What
I think I've heard that audio.
Shows over, butthorn. He oozes this gang of like, that's so good, dude. No, but Gary Busey was in, oh my God, he was in Bonanza.
He was in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Yes.
That great appearance as the cop.
He had his here it is. He had his Oscar nomination in the Buddy Holly movie.
That was such a good movie. He nailed that role.
But here is, and he was in Lethal Weapon. Mm-hmm. Remember, he was part of the Air America CIA crew operating their Golden Triangle heroin operation. Phoenix program, all that stuff that's involved with it. But this is one of the things people forget this. So let me pull this up. He was in this movie right here. There's Gary Busey right there on the left.
Oh, that's a young Gary Busey.
Yeah, it's called Big Wednesday. And the director is, guess who? John Milius, Apocalypse Now. So, which is crazy. Right, because I don't think I have this movie on DVD. It's three surfers. It's a the dudes being dudes. They're surfing. It's like a sort of Beach Boys type 60s, made in 1978, but it's a surfing movie, which is interesting because Pappas, right, is the older guy who seems like he's no idea about surfing. He just knows to look into sex wax. Right, Mr. Zog's sex wax for the surfboards, because, like they said in the one scene, the only data they've gotten from the entire data crunching of all of the crimes, all of the bank robbing is a one scuff mark on a counter. He said like Nixon scuffed his shoe on the counter. And then so they do an analysis of the scuff mark and then they find all these traces of chemicals. And then he says, this is sex wax, right? For the surfboard. But Gary Busey is the surfer in this movie, right? He's one of the actual guys who can surf.
Mhm.
And he was in this film. And it's also funny because it's John Milius, and John Milius, of course, wrote Apocalypse Now, right? Charlie Don't Surf.
Mhm.
You said it's safe to surf this beach, Captain. If I say it's safe to surf this beach. 6 foot peak. And this is also Jan Michael Vincent
Mhm.
is one of the surfers. He's a surfer in the middle right there. You know Jan Michael Vincent?
I know the name. I don't know what. I'm sure I know him from something. The name rings a bell.
Yeah, he was Airwolf. He's really cool. I mean, he was one of the guys that Norm wanted to interview on his show, and then he passed away.
Mhm.
He had had alcoholism, but he was a super cool looking guy who like could have been, Don Johnson or any of these guys. That's why he was an Airwolf, but
Mhm.
he was super cool looking. And and unfortunately I guess that didn't happen. But it's just an interesting thing to bring up here. The way that surfers are obviously countercultural in terms of what they represented in like 80s and 90s, 60s through 90s, society.
Mhm.
But it's also interesting the fact that that now that's mainstream, right? They have X Games and all this, and then
Mhm.
is surfing in the Olympics yet?
I don't think so. I actually don't know. I don't
I don't
think
know.
it is though.
I'm sure it will be if it's not. But it's a huge industry.
And it's interesting because the 90s were kind of ruled by skateboarding. And that was, and maybe just because it's more people have concrete around them than they do the ocean. And it was kind of interesting to see, like the Tony Hawk video games, they had like 10 of them or whatever it was. And those were huge. And then they did like a same kind of thing with Kelly Slater as like a surfing thing. And that game basically went nowhere. And it was kind of interesting to see the difference. Because I mean, skateboarding came from surfers, like when they couldn't surf, and just like attaching wheels and to pieces of wood using metal, and then it just kind of went from there. So, but yeah, it's sort of interesting to see it kind of got almost phased out in favor of skateboarding being like the sort of sport for people who weren't like traditional athletes in the 90s and 2000s.
Have you seen Lords of Dogtown?
Yes, great movie.
Dogtown and Z Boys. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Heath Ledger was so good in that. That was one of his best performances.
Yeah, he's cool. I liked Heath Ledger. He was cool. But you know how I got this smile?
So apparently surfing, somebody in the chat says surfing made its debut appearance at the 2020 Summer Olympics in Tokyo.
Okay. Right. Have you seen Heath Ledger's movie Candy?
Was that the one with Ellen Page? No, that was Hard Candy. Okay, no. Who was the guy? Was that Patrick something?
Elliot Page, sir.
Elliot Page. Excuse me. Elliot Page.
No.
Excuse me. I don't want to get your channel. I don't want to get. But anyway.
Okay. Enough of that. Okay. So
I can't remember. I think I'm mixing that up with a different movie. The Hard Candy was one of the. I don't think I've seen the one you're talking about.
No, Candy is not that. Candy is with Abby Cornish, who again is so fine. Abby Cornish is so hot. I'm just gonna say it. Abby Cornish is so hot. So she's so hot in this, but it's got Jeffrey Rush, and it's about their heroin addiction in Australia. And it's interesting because it's one of those movies where the movie came out, I think like 2006 or something. I don't know. And you see it, and then you go, oh, and then you hear the things about Heath Ledger, and then the circumstances of his unfortunate passing away. And it's just one of those, art and life sort of intertwining. But it's an interesting movie. But anyway, so yeah. So Gary Busey tells him that they have found the drop car, and we got a special guest here, you guys. We got Matty here already, and let me pull this up right here. And we got a special guest coming in. Here he goes. Yo, what's up, my man? Yo, what's up, Hesher?
Hey, man,
what's
good
going
to see
on?
you. Yeah,
everybody in the chat. Everybody in the
Yeah.
chat, say hello to Hesher right here.
Just hopping in a little bit late here, man, but been watching you guys and thinking back to the last time I saw Point Break. It's been a minute, but love that movie.
Yeah, so I mean, we mentioned how big and how important Matty, Hesher, Matty. So yeah, so we were talking about how big the movie was when it came out, and then of course its later influence on especially younger people. You know, I was like 10 or 11 around the time of the movie. I mean, like when I had my friends over, when I had a friend spend the night, like this was the movie. We would go to rent a movie, and this is the movie every weekend. And Hesher and I, by the way, everybody, we've done a couple movies together. We did the movie Hesher, and we did analysis of Asteroid City as well. So go back and check those out.
Hell yeah, those were fun.
What do you think, Hesher? I mean, what do you think is the impact of this movie, or what it means, what it says? How does it contrast with the way movies are made now? You know,
well, it's kind of interesting because nowadays movies, that was sort of like when it was cool to have ambiguously bad / good characters as like, you know, main staples in the movie. Now it's usually just unambiguously low moral people representing not even a like classic hero's journey like we've talked about before. It's just sort of like a, you know, Joe Dirt world sort of set of characters.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. That's a great point because, you know, so the anti-hero, the guy who's the good guy, but everybody knows what an anti-hero is, but the guy who's the good guy, but who is conflicted, right? Really, in my sort of film viewpoint, began in a big way with Dirty Harry, character Dirty Harry. And this is a product of the 70s auteur cinema and sort of gritty filmmaking. I just did a stream on The Conversation about with Gene Hackman, and Gene Hackman's Popeye Doyle in The French Connection is one of these characters. There's a scene in The French Connection where he goes into a bar and he just has everybody in the bar just empty their pockets, right? Everybody in the bar empty their pockets. He starts confiscating stuff. He's looking for the Corsican heroin guys. But he's willing to break the laws in order to, you know, get justice done or whatever. And then we see that same thing happen, like you just mentioned. I mean, in the 90s, this is pretty big because, okay, so this is a Catherine Bigelow movie, and Jim Cameron is instrumental in the movie. And Jim Cameron's Terminator is one of the classic examples of we have a bad guy. The Terminator is a villain. He's cold. He's not even human. So he's straight up villain. And then in the 90s, it shifts to the bad guy is now the good guy, right? Because he's there to save them. And he's an outlaw because he's dressed like a motorcycle guy. So,
which, by the way, goes back to what you were saying earlier about Terminator. Like, that was a movie that was made for us, and that was in evolution and character development that was made for Gen X and, you know, younger parents of Gen X kids. Like, that was cutting edge. That was felt more relevant. You know, people are like opening up more about their flaws, and, you know, you've got characters like, you know, Darth Vader for kids like us growing up, where it's like, you know, as Darth Vader's character expands. I mean, when I was a little kid and I lived in some bumfuck place, pardon my French, in like Southern California, like once a week we would go, like we lived way far away from town. It took like 40 minutes to get to town, and we'd go to town, and my thing was to get a Star Wars action figure, like, you know, whatever, you know, do my chores, whatever that week, whatever my little guy chores were. And my parent, you know, be a good kid. My parents would reward me with an action figure, you know, and the very first one I wanted from a little kid was Darth Vader. It wasn't Luke Skywalker. It was Darth Vader. Same with G.I. Joe, same with Transformers. It was Decepticons, you know, it was Cobra Commander. I would
Castro.
load up. Yeah, dude, I would load up on the villains first. And then
Yeah.
the villains became in those years, they were kind of the cool almost anti-heroes in some cases, or a hero turned villain or something like that. But when you look at the writing now, it's just like everybody's awful, everybody's awful, and their sense of humor or their sense of dark sarcasm is like what is supposed to make them entertaining, I guess,
Yeah.
to the youth.
Yes, you're exactly right. And Darth Vader to me, now that I'm, a grown ass man, Darth Vader I see as it's Miltonian. I mean, he's fallen from the good guys, so he's a kind of Satan figure, right? He's all in black, he's a straight villain. But in the end of the movie, he's redeemed, right? Because he's willing to sacrifice the emperor for his son. So he's, and then he ends up glowing. He transcends, man. He levels up. He's a star seed and he's glowing and he's in the Jedi afterlife or whatever. But like you said, yeah, I mean, like when I would go to my friend, shouts out to my friend Brad, when I would go to his house and we would play, like he had the dreadnoughts, right? And they were the coolest GI Joe. Like you had the good guys because you had to play, to fight, but like nobody wanted a Luke Skywalker GI Joe or a Luke Skywalker, action figure or anything like that. You wanted Boba Fett, and you wanted Darth Vader, and you wanted bad guys. You wanted GI Joe dreadnoughts. Destro was so cool. You wanted Cobra Commander, and so I think another thing that you bring up is that the substance of it. So the anti-hero thing of the 70s is supposed to be like a sort of a gritty realism, right? Where people are complex and we all know what's, happening. I think there's obviously a big shift with, there's a big shift like when the first war in Iraq happens. And then of course the biggest one is the whole change in artistic eras, which is the Big 9 event, because now we have a new thing where the bad guys are not in uniform and they're everywhere and they're in the country is what we're told. Right. And so, but there's a clear shift in the way people look, but they still aren't wearing the uniform. But the good guys are Toby Keith, RIP Toby Keith. He had his thing, right? And that was the good guys. And Sergeant Rock, I just did Predator last night, and that movie's clearly like there are Sergeant Rock characters in that, and they're alpha and they're supposed to be the good guys, but they still manage to do this clever thing with the way that the successful movies, the ones that are really good, which is that not only are they tapped into the way that people really feel and think, and they help to move that also, but they're tapped into the way that the youth think. And Point Break is probably the best example of that. I mean, like, again, like when I was young, like this was just so fun. I mean, this was like, I still have in the other room there, I've got a box. And when I was a kid, like when we would go to the playground, I created these like files because we had these wars with like our group, our gang versus the other kids, right? And we had code names. And like I remember with my friends being like, I'm Bodhi, you're Nathaniel, and it was just names from Point Break. And somebody, my friend Taylor would be like, I'm Bodhi. And I'd be like, there's no way, I'm Bodhi. Obviously. You know what I mean? Like but they're the bad guys in the movie. But I think the way that they show this is that yes, they're doing these, they're breaking the law, they're outlaws, and of course they embed the good guy with the bad guys. But the way that they're outlaws is also their mentality, right? Because they see themselves as being outside of not just like the legal system, but outside of the way that like the normies think. And they want to fund their endless summer and do extreme sports and extreme things. But it's also weirdly wholesome, right? That the bad guys are.
Yeah, you can relate to either team there, or you can even relate to like the FBI side. Like that's the kind of the neat thing about that movie is like one can gravitate towards sort of all of the character archetypes, or they can gravitate to one of them, or and a lot of it really did go for young people, and young people are attracted to outlaw mindset because society sucks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I mean, Matty, it's supposed to be like, it is kind of high school the way that they like high school cafeteria and the way that they show the guys in this, the archetypes in this movie. Cause we have the villains who are the surf Nazis and War Child and those guys. Then we have the jocks with Johnny Utah. Then we have the stoners who are the surfers, but the surfers and the jocks like can get along, but they're not really the same. They're still a group within a group. But then like the bad guys also, they know Bodhi. Remember when he shows up to save him when they're fighting and he's like, stay out of this, Bodhi. Right. And he's like, thank you. You know, you remember that scene?
No, it was just hilarious. It was funny seeing Swayze go full Roadhouse on but no, it is interesting. Yeah, I think likening it to the sort of high school cafeteria and where you sort of get these these kind of crossovers where it's interesting because like in high school it was like, people all knew each other, even if you didn't really hang out with them, even if you weren't really like friends with them. And so kind of having that and I mean it's a similar thing. Like if they have these different kind of surf crews, and they're obviously going to be surfing the same beaches, so like they're going to know each other. And it was interesting to see how like you mentioned with Bodhi and his crew, is they weren't really like violent in the same way like the surf Nazis were. It was kind of like, okay, well, we're going to do this. Like, he stepped in to help out Johnny when he gets jumped by the four of them. And then there was that like psycho guy at the end of the movie that they were linked up with. Rosie, was that
Rosie?
Something like that.
Yeah, Rosie.
But they weren't really, and they weren't. It's like, they were. It's almost weird because like, they were, robbing banks and holding people at gunpoint, but they weren't, in the big Jeep, like swerving through traffic and almost taking out other cars. It's like being unnecessarily obnoxious.
That scene is so fucking sweet, dude. That scene is radical, right? Because they just got in a fight at the beach, right? And now he's following them, and they're literally swerving all over the highway. Anthony Kiedis is standing up in the back of the Jeep. Yeah, that's a pretty cool scene. But yeah, and Rosie's a motorcycle guy, right? Remember how he starts even the way he starts the fire, like he punctures like the lighter fluid and like sprays it on the fire, and then he like spits out the beer, and he's in leather, right? Well, he's like a machine. He's like, once you wind him up, he will not stop, right? Somebody mentioned Lori Petty. I mean, we haven't even mentioned her because we haven't met her character yet. But Lori Petty's an interesting choice in this movie. What do you think about that, Hesher?
I don't even remember. Remind me who she is.
Lori Petty is Johnny Utah's girlfriend, and she is the contact that he uses to make his way into the group. So he needs to learn how to surf. And Gary Busey's like, it's got to be you, right? And he goes and he buys a surfboard. And then the little kid at the place, he's like, reminds me of a 57 Chevy I once saw. Right? He's got this huge surfboard. He goes out, he crashes. She sees him surfing, and then they initially talk a little bit, and then he's like, she starts to give him lessons, right? And there's people walking on the beach, they're laughing. They know her. She knows Bodhi. She was Bodhi's girlfriend. That's what's her name in the movie? I forget her character's name. Tyler, that's right.
She actually saves Bodhi originally because he gets crashed, like gets pulled under by the waves, and she actually dives down and basically saves him. And
that's true.
Like, give this up. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're an idiot. Don't. This is not for you.
That's true. Yeah, she does save him. He goes through a kind of not I guess a baptism of fire would be anachronistic, but like he goes through a sort of a baptism of getting towed into the undertow, and then later he saves her right after the skydive incident, which is crazy because it's weird the way that whole thing works out in the end, but also it's she has an ambiguous name, and her character looks slightly ambiguous in the movie. She's got short hair, she's very feminine in the movie.
She's kind of got that like Pat Benatar look to her a little bit.
Yeah. And I just wonder, it's an odd choice for the movie. I think probably the point of having her in the movie is that she doesn't look like the other girls. So she stands out as a unique character in this, and she's a reason for Johnny Utah to do the things that he does. But he lies to her, and the way he lies to her is he meets her and he sells her. I mean, this is total FED, right? He says that his parents, he gives her his whole resume. He says like he played at, Ohio State. He's a lawyer now. He says he's a lawyer, which by the way is probably true in terms of the recruitment, because it's one of the things that you have to one of the things they say you have to be in that thing, have a law degree. And he says that his parents were killed in an accident. And he knows that because he did research on her back at the base and found that she has no parents. Right. So that's their emotional connection. And that's why she feels sympathy for him and allows him to, she's going to start giving him lessons. But
which
then,
is just like pure manipulation on his part. It's very kind of gross sort of behavior. I mean, I get it's like, okay, he's trying to, figure out the bank. I don't know. That kind of was like, that just felt weird.
Well, it's a great illustration though of actual reality. If you got if an individual has an FED on their case in some way, you can find this like examples of this over and over again in people's, in documented cases where, someone that's working for an agency like that that's probably like, step one is profiling, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, using that, like if they're going to put a CI in there on somebody or actually use an FED to do that, then, they're absolutely, that's like, probably first day of class right there, Quantico or whatever.
It's a great point. I mean, it's profiling, it's emo manipulation, right? And it's such an extreme lie, right? Because of course now you would be able to. It seems like if someone did this, you could just easily find it out, but probably not. But it is such a personal and extreme lie that he's going to have to keep up, and he does it kind of on the spot. I mean, he knew that and he uses it on the spot, but it's weird how it shows Johnny Utah's character arc, because he goes from being the middle class, straight up athlete, FBI recruit, good guy, to doing something that is so second nature to his training or whatever that is, to having a conflict. And then later the resolution in the movie, right, is that he throws his badge into the surf at the end of the movie. And he's all in jeans and he's got longer hair now. So now he is Bodhi, but with morals, because he's been redeemed, I guess, by catching the bad guy at the end, I assume. Right. But it's just weird how this moral sense like goes out the window with this, in terms of and also he doesn't even know it's going to work, right? Because when they're surfing, this is the great scene in the movie. When they're surfing and he's just had his lesson or whatever, he looks up and he says, "Who's that?" And she says, "That's Bodhi, the Bodhisattva. They call him Bodhisattva. He's a modern savage, a real searcher. What's he searching for? The ride, man, the ultimate ride." And he looks so fucking cool, dude. He really, he's like cutting this wave, right? He goes into the green room. He does there's the meme, right? Which is now a meme of him looking at the camera and it's in slow motion. He's just, and you're just like, this guy is fucking alive, man. He's so cool. Chat, do you guys agree? I mean, the scene I'm talking about. Even the score changes, right? Even the music changes. We get this like serene synth line with like sunset and the water's glittering, and we get our we don't know who this guy is. He's like descended, and here he is. And then when we see him in person, by the way, I forget the surfer who was his stunt double, but the real guy was Bodhi. Like, I mean, he was really Bodhi, like in real life. This guy looked exactly like Patrick Swayze. No wig, no. He was just, that's who he was. And I think they really did well with like the truth of this thing. I know they probably used a shitload of like real surfers in the movie. They're at Huntington Beach and stuff. But then he's walking up on the beach and he does a quiet sign. He grabs her from behind, and it's like, oh, Keanu Reeves has nothing to do but kind of like towel himself off and look around, because he's just had his woman stolen for a second by this guy.
Savage.
Right. He's a modern savage. He's a real searcher. What's he searching for?
Searching to bear hug your girl.
Yeah, he just jacked her right there. right? And then he says, I'm having a little party at my house later. Yeah, you're invited. Come with Tyler. She knows the way. He doesn't give the address, right?
But
they
the
show up there.
implication is pretty sharp, ain't it?
Yeah. And when they show up, they're playing If 6 Was 9, the Jimi Hendrix song. And like one of the dudes has like, this is where Baja jacket, like Bajas became popular. Remember those?
Mm-hmm.
Like those Baja hoodies, you know, this is fucking so cool. And they're playing that song. And then when we see Bodhi, he's got the lime in his mouth. Like he takes a shot and the girl's like getting the lime, you know, and it's like this guy just Mikasa Sukasa, right? He's so cool, dude. What did you think, Matty? Because you just watched it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like, yeah, one of kind of the quintessential sort of cool characters. Like like when I think about all the characters in films who I look at, I'm like, oh, that guy's cool. Like Paul Kersey? Was that his name? The Charles Bronson character in Death Wish. Like that's just like a cool kind of character.
Yeah.
And like he's up there. You know, like a lot of the characters Clint Eastwood has played. But yeah, I didn't even catch that sort of like you said, the implication of him being like, oh yeah, like she knows how to get there. She knows the way. And I also appreciated the fact that there was actually some kind of where he was like, oh, where is it? Because like one of the biggest annoyances for me in movies is people will like have just met and they're like, oh yeah, like come by my place later. And it's like, okay, I'll be there. And it's like, what time? Like, how are you getting there? And then everybody just arrives there. And that like, that's one of my pet peeves when it comes to when it comes to film.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's also like a hippie holdover, right? Because his house is very hippie-ish. He's like he is a surf bum, you know, but there's no time to be there. Nobody, you know, he doesn't give the address out. It's whenever. It's very loose. My house, you know, is your house. So it's and free love, right? Because Lori Petty, you know, with him and all that. But it's also interesting. Somebody brought up that, it's Phone Punk says one of Jimmy's best and underrated. And it's interesting because lyrics to songs and song choices in movies are always important. And this one is If 6 Was 9. So we get a sexual implication in the party. And it's a very, you know, but it's also if you listen to the lyrics of the song, it's about, it's a very 60s song about letting your freak flag fly. He's, you know, and being a countercultural person, like outside of the bounds of reality, as Jim says. And it's also it's an inversion, right? If 6 was 9 is an inversion. Like the way we see things are going to flip. And so this is before he realizes that Bodhi looks like he's this thing, but he's actually the bad guy, right? Mm-hmm. He's the one he's been searching for the whole time. And they go down into the basement. And that's when he's looking at the pictures on the wall in Bodhi's room. And there's like a guy rock climbing. There's somebody skydiving. And that's when Lori Petty says the thing about, you know, they're a bunch of damn adrenaline junkies. And, you know, some people jab a vein for it, you know. And then he comes down and he says, how about a little stealth mission? He gives him like the coolest looking surfboard ever. It's like black. It's totally black mirrored surfboard. And they go out night surfing. So if 6 was 9, right now they're doing their daytime activity, but at night in total darkness. And you're surfing, man, right? So Keanu Reeves Johnny Utah gets the seal of approval from Bodhi, who gives him his things, but who also tells him you're one of us now. And it's also implied that it's okay if you're with this girl who was mine, because he leaves them out there alone. In the darkness, and he leaves the fire burning for him on the beach while they leave. So he's now welcome, right? He's now welcome in their group. So he's interesting. You realize that.
No, that's a really good point. And I think that's something I noticed is that there's sort of these almost like tests that he's kind of putting him through. I think the first one is, you know, when he gets jumped by those guys. I think it's implied that Bodhi was sort of watching that to see and he even comments on how he reacted later, you know, going up against 4 different people in a fight. And so it's kind of like he's observing him, kind of feeling him out, seeing. And then it's like, because I think Tyler says to Bodhi, she's like, oh, like he's not ready for this. Like he's basically just learned how to surf and they're about to go out and surf at night. And, you know, he sort of proves himself to Bodhi. They're like, he can hang, that he's, you know, not like weak and you know, is willing to go along with whatever. Like he's got some heart.
Yeah. You're like a pit bull, man. Since you didn't back down, right? Mm-hmm. It reminded me of AJ Speed. of AJ's speech about the coming across the like warthog. You remember that one?
Oh yeah,
AJ, AJ said one time I was walking on the trails outside of my house. You know, I was just walking in the woods and I came across a wild boar. And it looked right in my eyes and it sensed my alpha power and it left. And I knew then that I was the alpha. You know?
Oh man.
I guess that's what Bodhi thinks about him, right? Yeah.
You know, as gang initiations go, they made that one seem pretty smooth. You know, it probably puts a little bit of false imaging and narrative in people's heads about how nasty that kind of thing can actually be. But you know, bless them for making it Hollywood style and digestible to the people, I suppose, because a lot of actual initiations are, well, you know, we got plenty of movies about those too.
Right. Yeah. Well, he does get jumped in, you know, because it's the other guy, but it's the other guys who do it. So Bodhi lets him bypass the jumping in from his own crew. And like, you know, you guys were talking earlier about the violence of these two groups, and the Anthony Kiedis group, the War Child group, has an unrestrained wild violence, right? Where there's meth and there's, you know, there's Anthony Kiedis and all this stuff is going on. But with these guys, they are as undercover as Johnny Utah is. These guys are undercover. And also, I just think it's important that he mentions the circles within circles, because that is highly revelatory for Johnny Utah's side, right? Rather than the bad guys. But there is a group within a group, and the initiation is not like what it seems. And then later he will initiate him a kind of false initiation where he makes him go along on the bank robbery, right? But that's to compromise him. That's not an initiation. That's a compromise, because now Utah is on tape bank robbing, which John C. McGinley is not happy about. Right. The guy was an off-duty cop, right? But so they're surfing, and then he's got to go back to the office. This is the great scene where he goes back to the office with the surfboard in his hand. Right. And he's walking through, and then and he meets Pappas, by the way. I mean, we met Pappas, who we see that Pappas you know, this is important to mention that Pappas's first scene is where he's blindfolded. Which is very weirdly, I'm not trying to make it too figurative and say it's like it's a Masonic movie. It's not, but there are elements in this where we have nighttime initiations. We've got the fire burning, you know, let the brother receive the light. We've got Gary Busey standing there with the blindfold on, right? And 2 bricks coming up. Everything he says is in twos. And he was some quarterback punk, right? And he like does this wild dive into the pool. But he's an old timer. He's an old timer within this, like this. There's a contrast and a clash with the new FEDs, but he's all heart. And so the way that he, you know, when they go and they got to clip the guy's hair and find the soil samples or whatever, and they think it's these guys. And when they pull up and Pappas is watching him with the binoculars, you know, from beyond the beach, he's quick to go save his buddy, right? You see a little kid running through here with a car stereo, right? You remember that? He's like, no, man, you know, I think you went that way. But Pappas is all heart, and he's out of shape. You know, he's this big guy. He's a big, you know, he's eating 2 meatball subs or whatever during the bank robbery. But he's a tragic character, though, right? And that's one of the things that really pisses me off in the movie, because Utah now is fully embedded with the bad guys when he lets Pappas die, right? He jumps in front of him. No, they got Tyler. But in the moment, dude, the guy is saving you, and he's going to he's going to die in that scene. And his name is Angelo. So he's a kind of angel for Keanu Reeves. He's constantly trying to save him. He saves him when he fights War Child. He shoots out the lawnmower in that great fight scene when they raid the house. Right. So I don't know. What do you guys think about Pappas?
Dude, I'm coming in cold. It's been a minute since I've seen it. I don't even remember who played that guy.
Yeah, Gary Busey.
Oh, Gary Busey. I love Gary
Yeah,
Busey.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. No, sorry, man. I'm going to step away for a second here. Feel free to throw
yeah.
me in the green room. I will be back. I got to take care of something. Be right
Okay,
back.
man. Yeah. So I'm gonna put him in the green room. There's, and thanks to Hesher for stopping by, you guys. Give some love to Hesher, to Alternate Current Radio. Hopefully, everybody watches Boiler Room every week, and of course TNT Radio, which I've had so much fun and appreciate them having me on all this time. It's been so awesome. I love being able to contribute in any way I can. And of course, thank you here to Matty. Everybody, make sure that you subscribe to Digital Minefield at YouTube. Our friend Matty here, the real Cooter Brown. So what did you think about Pappas and Gary Busey's character? Because this is Gary Busey, like this is peak Gary Busey.
Yeah, he seemed like I knew a couple people when I was growing up whose dads were in the FBI, and they were like he was that sort of like exact like every guy I knew, like every middle-aged dad from that era who was in the FBI, like that's Gary Busey. I mean, he was a bit more animated than those guys were,
Yeah.
but it was kind of interesting because when I was watching this movie, I was like, I know that guy. Like I've seen that guy. I used to hang out with that guy as a kid. And so yeah, it was I don't know. I mean, I think Gary Busey's good and everything, but I think that role, I mean, he just nailed it because he's kind of he's sort of gruff and it's like, oh, why do I have to go get these bricks off the bottom of the pool? Like I've been doing this for 22 years. I've shot my weapon 19 times on the job, and like why do I he's out there with like a bunch of rookies having to do the physical fitness stuff, so that kind of like, oh, like I shouldn't have to do this, I'm too good for this, these kind of rules don't apply to me.
I just sent Jerry the link there. Yeah, no, you're right. And like the rules don't apply to him. Exactly right. Because he's from the old school and he knows how to get stuff done, and the data thing does not apply to him. And when he brings that surfboard into the office, right, and Hart brings him in, and he's like, John C. McGinley does this thing is you know what you two guys have established? He says, and in the last 2 weeks, right, you guys have accomplished exactly squat, right? It's twos, squat, 2 bricks coming up. Utah, give me 2, right? There's 2 skydiving scenes. There's two protagonists, right? There's a dialectic in the movie that's inherent in it. And it's like you have to choose between the two. And the middle ground, which seems to be John C. McGinley, like at least on their side, is kind of repugnant. Nobody sympathizes with him in the movie. He's made to be a kind of a dork. I mean, he is. And of course, do you have anything to say for yourself, right? Utah? I caught my first tube this morning. Right? Yeah. Nice Point Break. That's the title of the movie. Yeah, somebody brought up earlier, the movie was supposed to be called Riders on the Storm. And that ties in, of course, with John Milius and his Big Wednesday movie, because John Milius, choosing the Doors for, in the end, for the soundtrack for Apocalypse Now. John Milius is interesting for the folks at home. John Milius is Walter Sobchak in The Big Lebowski. When you watch The Big Lebowski, John Goodman's character is John Milius. He looks like him. He talks like him. He acts like him. He was based on him. And John Milius and Francis Ford Coppola were both around in the 60s at UCLA Film School and knew Jim Morrison. That's why Jim Morrison went to UCLA Film School, graduated from there when Francis Ford Coppola was there. And so that's why they partly chose the Doors for Apocalypse Now. And also because it's the end, and because the movie is, the song is a Oedipal quest, right? Mother, right? And then the father, yes, son, I want to kill you, right? It's Oedipal. So that's what Willard is accomplishing by serving the state, his daddy, and also by eliminating, terminating with extreme prejudice, Colonel Kurtz. But we also have this weird thing between surfing and war. So it's just like in Full Metal Jacket with why do you wear a peace sign on your military helmet? It says something about the duality of man, sir. Right. So it becomes Jungian, I suppose. But here again, of course, the good guys are the bad guys, and the bad guys are different kind of bad guy. But everybody seems to be sympathetic in this movie, which is one of the great things about it, because like Hesher was saying, oftentimes in these movies, the people they're not sympathetic. We don't find any. It's like when I did the Peter Pan movie with Jamie, the new Peter Pan and Wendy movie, and the actor they got for Peter Pan, it just makes it not sympathetic at all. Yo, Liz, shouts out to our friend here, Jerry.
Yo,
what's up, homeboy?
Long time no talk, man. What the frick, dude?
Yeah.
What's going on, Matty? Good to see you guys. Good to see you guys still rolling with the videos. It's been awesome watching them. I missed your Predator stream last night, and I was actually watching Predator 2 when I saw the thing. I was like, wait, what synchro is this, dude? First time. But I don't want to derail your show too much, because I've never seen this movie that you guys are talking about. But I couldn't help but hop on and say congrats on the 3K, dude. That's huge. That's really
thanks, man. Appreciate it. And of course, you're instrumental in that and getting this whole thing started. So I appreciate you and love you. Everybody out there exposing powerful lies. Jerry here. Yeah, I hope you're doing well, man. Yeah, it looks cold. It does not look like it does here. It's not warm here. I'm just inside, but yeah, it looks cold.
We had 7 feet of snow, and that's all melted, so I'm happy, dude. The sun came out yesterday. It was a nice warm 40 degrees. So I was out in the wife beater just like you, 40 degrees in summer.
Yeah. No, I saw the Instagram videos of the 7-foot snow drifts and
dude.
Oh, dude.
It was nuts.
I wish we had that down here, man. I would trade the 53 or whatever it is at 60, whatever it is outside right now for 7 feet of snow.
I was thinking of you the whole time, dude. I was like, man, if only Matty was here, dude, he'd be loving it. And for the first year in a long time, I really enjoyed it. I was like, this is beautiful. This is a really nice thing to just be sort of snowed in, see the snow undisturbed by tires. It really is peaceful and beautiful. But
yeah, I think, Matty, you say that you want the snow, but I don't know. I think it gets pretty old pretty quickly. But that's maybe because when it snows down south, it's like total apocalypse. Everything shuts down. The highways are just like when it rains here, like people are just like off the road. It's just cars and ditches everywhere. It's crazy.
Yeah, when I was traveling down south, I would always get a kick out of seeing these signs like road closed during snow. You know what I mean? And they take that serious. It's like 1 inch and it's shut down, And over here, if we got 3 feet, like that's the most fun time to drive. You're slipping and sliding and swerving around the corner. Yeah, that's fun time, man.
Yeah, when the craziest road sign I ever saw was when I was in Florida with my mom and sister, and there was a road sign that it said caution ahead, be alert, and there was a bee. Like on the sign, like a picture of a bee. And I was like, because I was like 9, and I was like, Mom, there's a beehive. There's bees everywhere. You got to be careful. There's
not the bees. Not the bees.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool or whatever, but it hasn't snowed here very much. So, but
all right, let me hop off, dude. Like I said, I don't want to derail you guys' show, but seriously, congrats on 3K. Awesome to see you. Awesome to see that the channel keeps growing. Here's the 3K more. I got nothing to cheers you with except this empty coffee cup, but here's the 3K more, and you guys are killing it.
Cheers, homeboy. Love you, man.
Love you.
Good talking to you.
Love you, buddy. Peace.
Take care.
That's Jerry, everybody, exposing powerful lies right there. And everybody, make sure you give him a like and a sub over there if you haven't. I mean, all our friends are here. All the stars are here. Claude, Barfy Man 69. All the stars are here, as Norm Macdonald said at the first YouTube Awards. So, but yeah, Riders on the Storm. He took a face from the ancient gallery and he walked on down the hall, right? And so we get this weird surfing thing. We had the Jimi Hendrix scene, right, with the bank robbing, and now we're going to really see what the ex-presidents do, right? And they're wearing their ex-president masks. They're all in black tie. Reagan especially is in black tie. They go in 60 seconds, they rob the bank, and they're out. And Johnny Utah and Pappas have to catch these guys, but they still think it's the other guys until they realize that it's Bodhi, right? And this is when they're staking out a bank, and they it's two. They got these sandwiches, right? Utah, give me 2. And thank you, Being in Motion. Really appreciate that there. You guys also, you can support if you want to drop a super chat. You can ask a question. give a shout out. And you can also feel free to really to hit me up on those other links on the main links, because they get right to me. I really would appreciate that. And you can also share the stream. Everybody go back and make sure you watch my Predator stream from last night, which we kind of threw up. I kind of threw that one up at the last minute. But is another one of these great films. And I will be doing, just to cut in for a second, I'll be doing a lot of literature coming up. We've been doing a bunch of movies, and I'll be doing Shakespeare and a bunch of hardcore literature for about the next couple weeks. Maybe throw a movie in there for the members streams. If you want to grab a membership, that also helps me out. And you can be one of our members. So be there with us in the circle within the circle. So when they see the red Lincoln pull up, right, Utah sees them coming out of the bank, and he immediately breaks, he gets made, and he draws his gun. And notice that when he draws his gun, they're going to shoot him, and Bodhi gets his gun and points it out of the way. Don't get it. Don't kill him. Right. And this is when one of the great chase sequences in movies occurs, right? Because they make their way to the bank. I mean, to the gas station, right? Bodhi pulls out he like hijacks the other car. He burns the car with the gasoline. He lights it. And this is a great scene because Reagan is standing there in flames, right? Flaming the car, making sure they get all the fingerprints off. And then there's a on foot chase sequence, right? Mixkey says, I'll be in the green room in just a little bit. So
that's kind of like what Reagan did to the country.
Oh, snap.
Well, I wanted to say one thing that was interesting to me is Johnny Utah. He's like the sharp young guy who's kind of coming up, and he's sort of the new guy on the block who's really good at what he does. And Gary Busey, I've been doing this 22 years or whatever, and they just because he's like, oh, I want sandwiches, like go get me 2 meatball sandwiches, and like they completely miss the fact that the car pulls up because Gary Pappas is doing freaking whatever he was doing, and Johnny's over there like getting sandwiches and lemonade, and just like totally miss the fact that the car rolls. That to me was so funny.
Yes, he hold on, let me send Jethro the link here. Yeah, it's funny because you see that Lincoln pull up, right? And he says, "What Lincoln?" And he's just scarfing down 2 sandwiches because he's a meatball. So he's eating these dirty meatball sandwiches. They got the best meatball sandwiches. Subs, Utah, give me 2. And the foot chase sequence is great because Pappas again tries to, Pappas saves him here, and he also gets saved by Bodhi, right? Which is interesting. But they have this foot chase sequence scene, and it's so well done because the music goes into that little. It's like, what's the music here? It's like synthetic drum. It's like doom, 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 doom. The same thing they do in Heat. And they're running through the alleyways in LA, and they run through houses. Remember, he picks up a pit bull and throws him on its face. He gets bitten by the dog on the way. And this is highly influential. It's a very influential chase sequence. And of course, with action movies, chase sequences are really important, right? It's very hard to do them well. Probably the most famous car chase scenes are Steve McQueen's Bullet, French Connection, then Ronin. I did an analysis of Ronin, the movie Ronin. That has the great car chase scenes. But here we have a foot chase, and it's not steady cam. It's like we're with them in the action, and eventually what happens is that they make their way to the LA, open sewers, and Bodhi, who is an extreme athlete who's so good, right, jumps down into the ravine, and Johnny Utah tries to chase him, but he gets his knee blown out again. He says, "It's that knee, ain't it? You want me so bad you could taste me? It's like acid in your mouth. Well, not this time." Right, and he's blown. His cover's blown. Shouts out to Hesher out there who drops $20, says, "Keep up the amazing work. Thanks for everything you do." Thank you, Hesher. Really appreciate you. Let's see. Let me bring Hesher in real quick here. Yeah, thank you so much, Hesher. Really appreciate you. That means a lot. Thank you so much, sir.
Absolutely,
there's a-
absolutely. Love to see everybody jumping in on that and supporting my buddy Bazed here, man. You're just a force to be reckoned with on the interwebs, and one of the nicest guys we've met in over a decade of doing this stuff. So we sure appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you, man. That means a lot. That means a lot to me. Thank you so much. You guys have, so kind. You guys have helped me out and so much, and I love being able to contribute anything, to what you guys do. I mean, everybody here, knows that, like, Jethro, my friend, I'm about to bring on right here. Here's Jethro. Jethro and I have been listening. At least Jethro and I have been listening to TNT for, I don't know, years, and we spent so much time every Thursday night, listening to you guys. And then when 2020 rolled around, like, it was just like, oh yeah, remember they talked about this in August 2017.
Yeah. Well, it's easy to I'm sure alternate current radio. We do TNT as well. We're a little bit newer at TNT, but Boiler Room, alternate current radio. But man, thank you for joining us on TNT too. You've really helped widen the cultural and intellectual gap over there at TNT. Added a lot of diversity with your appearances on multiple shows, including mine, State of the Nation, with Steve Hook, and back when Lynn Shaw was my co-host as well. We always loved having you on, and we'll continue to do so, man. And same at Boiler Room at Alternate Current Radio.
Thanks, man. Yeah, did I say TNT? I meant Boiler Room. Yeah, listening to Boiler Room way back in the day. And we love Miss Lynn. She calls me Mr. Bazed. What do you have to say, Mr. Bazed? She's awesome. Love her. Jethro, what's up? Say hello to Hesher and Matty.
What's up, Jethro?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
What's up, man?
Man, Hesher and Coot
Yeah.
and Bill A. Holy cow, this panel is insane already.
It's a good day, man. It's a good day.
Yeah.
I love your avatar.
Yeah.
Picked especially for this occasion, of course.
It's perfect.
Yeah. This movie is peak Gary Busey. It really is. He later had reality shows made about him, and he became a kind of a meme. But this is where Gary Busey is at his best, because he's really all heart in the movie. I mean, he's so genuine. And that's something that's pretty hard to achieve, because he plays a kind of outlaw within the FED group. Right. And he's one of the only characters in the movie that seems to have a true, genuine sense of virtue. And of course, that's because he's not fit enough like Utah is to be doing the undercover work, and he's just assisting him. But regardless of that,
Well,
he
made his bones while somebody was popping pimples and doing stuff with cheerleaders.
That's right.
What was the line?
Right.
I can't remember it exactly.
Yeah. At K-San. Yeah, he was. That's true. That brings in the Vietnam element into the movie. And he makes sure to let Harp know that. And there's one thing out of all those years that you just haven't got. Oh, yeah? Well, why don't you astonish me, shitface? Right? The best punch out of all time. Respect for my elders, plain and simple. Right? It's so well done. He punches him out in the bank in the crime scene, and then gets him in the car. And then, I know where they're going. I thought you'd say that. Has the keys to the cuffs, right? Gets him out. And then they go straight to the airport. So we also have kind of overlooked the skydiving scenes in the movie. This movie, I mean, I mentioned before how this movie really popularized MTV Sports. Like, it came straight out of this movie, Dan Cortez and all that stuff. And it is the extreme sports movie of all time, which is one of the major elements of the movie. And they go skydiving. And this is where, Gromit says, "You're a speed star." You guys know what a speed star is? A speed star apparently is like when they're skydiving and they form together in the sky and make a star shape. So that's why they're free falling. And the probably the coolest thing about this movie is that the up close sequences they filmed like on a air stage, but when Bodhi falls out of the plane and he says rock and roll, and he jumps out and he's doing his ballet moves in the air because he was a dancer. That was him. They really filmed that. And he insisted on doing a bunch of jumps and doing this live. He wanted to do it live because, and that moment is what really seals the movie in its greatness because it's authentic and it's genuine and it's not CGI and it's a guy jumping out of a plane in the movie. And so it's really cool, seeing his face in the frame of the airplane and then jumping into the air is very, very cool. And then and this is like boys being boys, like this is dudes being dudes. They lock arms. It's summertime. They're doing a speed star through the air, and then they of course fall into the water, and it's like this is peak, right? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Oh, absolutely. If you had any friends that growing up that were surfers, and Spore and I had a number of those because we're from California, you can't help but really gravitate towards, Bodhi and the crew in this movie and wonder if, Keanu is actually gonna, not want to follow through with his Fed career. And it's just too damn fun. It's too damn fun, and a lot of us, at least out in California, we were, peak like Pal Peralta, Bones Brigade days. So we were all, surfing the streets basically on skateboards. So, I mean, the cool factor at the time really cannot be overstated. Like I was talking to Spore as we were starting to watch the beginning of the stream here, and she was like, I don't think I watched this. And I was like, well, you probably did. And if you didn't, just because of, the age range of your family and on the timeline here, like your mom, your dad, your siblings probably all watched it. It was probably playing in the background in some places. Like, I mean, it was a blockbuster that year. I don't know if it won any awards or anything, but I'd be surprised if it didn't.
Yeah, well, it definitely made Catherine Bigelow's career, right? And it was one of the big deals about the movie that, that this was a major summertime blockbuster action movie directed by a lady in Hollywood, with the Jim Cameron connection. But she one of the things that's crazy about the movie is the theme of the movie and the way the narrative works. And then she later starts making propaganda movies, for the war on terror. But even those movies have it's okay. So this might be too far, but what's crazy is that in a literary sense, people will often criticize someone like the playwright Tennessee Williams, they'll say that people can write great plays or great movies, but they can't write for women. And Tennessee Williams not critical of Tennessee Williams. So Tennessee Williams writes great parts for ladies, and Shakespeare, Harold Bloom makes clear that Shakespeare writes great parts for all levels of humanity and men and women. But one of the great Hollywood filmmakers who makes movies about dudes is Catherine Bigelow, right? Which I find very interesting because her movies often have this element of guys in teams who have a common bond through action. The Hurt Locker was all about that, right? It was about, proving yourself and being in this thing. And regardless of all the other stuff that happens in the movie, like they're a team, they're a cohesive unit. And there's a kind of a rebel figure within the system. Even Zero Dark 30, when we finally meet the SEALs, right? And Chris Pratt at the end, like they look almost like SEAL versions of Point Break, right? They're scruffy. And that movie really popularized the thing that had been going on in the war on terror, which was that the spec ops guys had beards, had longer hair. They had their own unit apart from the other guys. I have a friend who he's a combat vet. He was a Ranger, and he said that it was really like that with those guys, that, you couldn't go over there and they looked different and they had their own thing and they were a group within the group. So I think that's interesting that she sort of accomplished that.
And that was interesting because I was just thinking, like, I don't remember if it was when the main character, Jessica Chastain, was that her name? Like when she first encounters them, I think it's when she first encounters Chris Pratt and his group, she like insults them and he just kind of laughs it off. It's like it's a very sort of laid back, it's kind of like either 0 or 100 type of thing.
It's either 0, dark, or 30. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of, similar to, because like Bodhi and his crew, like when they're doing something extreme, they're very like up here, but normally they're like very kind of even, and there's not really a lot of they're very zen. There's not a lot of there's no kind of like outbursts or rage or anything like that. Like they're pretty low key until it's time to kind of be on, and then it's it's straight up to 100.
Yeah, Darth Mona points out American Psycho, kind of the same thing. Interesting that that the movie and the Bret Easton Ellis book, which get a lot of the that label that you mentioned in the chat, is made by this female director, right? It's interesting how that ends up happening. And yeah, she mentions that, I didn't, when they first pointed the idea of doing a human raid, and pointing out you guys with your weights and your dip and your, I thought, no, we'll just drop a bomb, right? Which is interesting in light of the movie and the real events and what is the purpose of this whole thing? The way that we are told that it happened, right? Why not just drop a hellfire on it instead of this whole cowboy raid, right? Beautiful dogs, right? Most people go in through the wall. Most people go in through the door. These guys went in through the wall, right? Beautiful dogs. They had beautiful dogs. Abu Bakr al-Baghdad. It's a different one, but still.
He died like a dog. He died a very slow death.
Like a dog. No. And that's, yes. No, and that's fictional. We're talking about a fictional movie here, of course.
Wait, hold up. So it is Point Break based on anything, or is this strictly from screenplay to film?
Well, there were the downtown LA shootouts, but they occurred after the movie, and then there was the
scenario.
Yeah. So Heat was based on a movie called LA Shootout, which was based on a real Chicago event.
Okay.
Which was a mid-street thing that happened. And the book Heat 2, which is being made into a film, deals with that as a kind of prequel. There are a couple of, just from where I grew up, a couple of things like Heat occurred in the 90s. There were two guys that went into a bank and got away, and this was like on the front page, like 1993. It happened just like in Heat and kind of like in Point Break with a foot chase, and they ended up getting away for a time. And then there was another one with a pull out, like they pulled out of a van in the middle of the daytime and robbed this bank. But I think that as far as surfers go, like this was a complete Hollywood invention. It's probably likely that somebody heard a story about this. This was an idea for the movie, but it wasn't a big phenomenon.
All right. Well, I only asked because in the American Psycho example, the director of that film didn't have to really, you know what I mean? They just had to transpose the characters here that were so well fleshed out by B.E. Ellis. I mean, that is one of the most descriptive books I've ever read. It's pretty disturbing, actually, some of the events in that book. But I mean, it's still a great point. Like you got female directors doing films that would have that kind of label.
Yeah, and it's a good point about American Psycho because the book informs the movie, but the movie takes on a completely different.
That's true.
Tone than the book does. The book is much darker, and it has it's much more sinister. It also has funny moments, but the real funny moment. I mean, the book is written in a cinematic style, so it's available for that. I mean, it was ready made for a movie, in a way, not like No Country for Old Men, which was written in a purely cinematic, screenplay style. But like there's one scene in American Psycho which is so horrendous to read, but there is a scene that's funny that's not in the movie where, for instance, Bateman goes to a U2 concert. This is one of the funniest parts in the book, and he's talking about how they wanted to go to this concert and this guy Bono was going to sing, and he goes and he's standing up front, and he said during the concert Bono locked eyes with him. And there was this weird psychic connection. And then he looks up in the sky, he just imagined the sky turning into blood red mist and everybody on Earth being evaporated. I
love that. Hey, I got to step away for a minute again here, dude. Again,
no problem, dude.
Congrats on everything, man. I'll try to get back before you finish here.
All right, thanks, man. Appreciate it. So, Jethro, what you think?
I was going to say, picture Bateman going to the Vegas Sphere to see U2, and he has his headphones in listening to Robert Palmer while Bono's doing and what he sees is projected on the screen, and that would be interesting.
Do you remember there was like a brief Instagram video, I think you sent it to me, of the guy who he was like, I hacked the Vegas Sphere,
Yeah.
And like, and the guy's like standing there, and he's like, warning, warning, warning. We know everybody in here who dropped acid before this event. The cops are on their way. We know each of your names. Alarm, alarm, alarm.
Yeah, I've been seeing some interesting things on them. Somebody, I don't know if this was real or meme, but somebody was like, the one I saw today was the entire thing was SpongeBob. And he's like, I hate seeing this yellow crap at 2 a.m. or whatever. And it's this huge SpongeBob face on it.
Yeah, just watching you. I'm gonna look for this passage from American Psycho because it's
There's
so good.
there's another hilarious, and I don't know if I've talked about this on stream before, but the one where he's walking down the street and he like throws money in the person's cup, and it's a girl who's a student at Columbia who's just like sitting out there drinking coffee on the steps of her brownstone. I was like, I wish they could have worked that into the film because I like had to put the book down. I was laughing so hard when I read that.
You're a kind man. You're a kind man. What are you here for, huh? Speak up. Insider trading? Just joking.
You may have mentioned this earlier because I missed some of the some of the stream, guys. But I think somebody in the chat was saying, was the LA thing with the guy in the body ARMOR? Did you guys talk about that?
No.
Remember that incident? I was trying to remember if they were ascribing that was a consequence of some movie, and it was around the time of Heat, and they got in this big SHOOTOUT with this guy for like hours and hours, and he had gotten, I don't know what kind of weapons, but it was crazy, and it went on for almost an entire day. But
yeah, I recall that one. I mean, there've been so many now. Right.
Oh yeah.
There've been so many that it's almost like one of the things with Hollywood. How am I ever going to find this passage, dude? It's one of the things with Hollywood that art and reality, it's not that I talked a lot about this with the books. It's not that that art is made to influence reality or reality, they get the ideas from reality. I mean, that certainly happens, but it's this weird symbiosis where art and reality like coincide in this nexus point where oftentimes culture seeps through people and generations, and people do things in real life that totally mimic what has already happened in art, and they're even unaware of it, which is a kind of postmodern thing. Seems to be a sort of that's almost pure postmodernism, right? Where you're so influenced by art and you don't even know that you are, or vice versa. So the ideas for movies and screenplays can come from something that happened and then you don't even remember, or you never even knew about them in the first place, but they mimic them like perfectly.
Right. Because I was just trying to remember the news at the time. Of course, they tried to do the same thing when the OKC thing happened, and blame talk radio. And then, of course, fast forward a few years and you get the COLUMBINE situation, and they draw the parallels with the Matrix, of course. I remember all that.
Yes,
but anyway,
of course.
Sorry.
Shouts out to Roscoe P. Cotrain, who drops 50 Canadian. There he is right there. Let's see. Roscoe P. Cotrain says, congrats on the 3K mark, BLA. Keep on rolling. Hey, appreciate you. Thank you so much, Roscoe P. Cotrain, who is a big supporter here and who has sponsored streams. And if you want to sponsor a stream out there, shoot me an email for your ideas, and also drop me that fat chat on PayPal, Cash App, Venmo if you want to see that. Give me a bunch of ideas. I'm coming up. I've got a new one coming up, sponsored stream on Shakespeare, and we just did. We've done a bunch of them. I've been trying to get back, get into them. If you've sponsored a stream and I haven't got to it yet, I still got you. We just got a lot of material to cover. I also got to do Perfect Blue in the anime stream for Real John Connor out there. So thank you, Roscoe P. Cotrain. I found one of the passages.
I just wanted to ask real quick. Have you done a stream on the Al Pacino Merchant of Venice?
No, but my buddy's in. No, but my friend is in that movie.
Okay, I didn't think you'd done one. I heard about that recently, and it's supposed to be pretty good. I didn't know if you'd talked about that one.
No, but my friend Charlie Cox is in that movie. That's from drama school. That's the movie that he left drama school to be in, because he was in the movie Casanova with Heath Ledger and Jeremy Irons, and Jeremy Irons went to our drama school, and then he did an audition or they asked him to be in it. And I remember being in the dressing room and him coming in and being like, I'm going off to be in an Al Pacino movie. And we were like, what the fuck? And he was like, yeah. And this is the one where drama nerds will get this joke.
Wait, Charlie Cox? Isn't that Daredevil?
Yeah, it's Daredevil. Yeah.
Oh,
that's one of my that's one of my buddies from drama school. Yeah. So what he came back and told us he did this in the audition. He was funny for being I don't want to say okay, that sounds kind of mean if I say he had airheaded jokes. Okay. And he said that, but this is funny because he's aware that he did this. So do you guys know what it means to like throw away a line? If you're an actor and you throw away a line on stage, maybe this is just a drama nerd thing, but it means that, let's say I'm saying the line, let's say I'm doing Shakespeare, and instead of saying, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. If I throw away the line, I say, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. To throw away the line means like to change direction and say it in a different way. So in the audition for The Merchant of Venice, they asked him to hold a card in front of him that said his name, Charlie Cox, and then go on he had to do a screen test. And he said he's holding up the piece of paper, and they said, okay, say your name and then and throw it away. So he said, my name is Charlie Cox. And they said, no, throw away the piece of paper, not do a throwaway line. And he said, oh, I'm very sorry. It was very funny. If you get that, if you're a drama nerd, it's a very good one. But anyway, so we're doing drama school jokes here, you guys. Here's one of the parts from American Psycho. You guys were sort of just mentioning, and this is if you want to watch my American Psycho stream, that one was pretty bad. We did that one, I don't know, a year ago. And that was purely on the book. We talked about the movie in it also, but here's one of the things he says. It's kind of a longer passage. So it's one paragraph, but I'm going to read this. He says, where there was nature and earth, life and water, I saw a desert landscape that was unending, resembling some sort of crater, so devoid of reason and light and spirit that the mind could not grasp it on any sort of conscious level. And if you came close, the mind would reel backward, unable to take it in. It was a vision so clear and real and vital to me that in its purity, it was almost abstract. This was what I could understand. This was how I lived my life, what I constructed my movement around, how I dealt with the tangible. This was the geography around which my reality revolved. It did not occur to me ever that people were good or that a man was capable of change or that the world could be a better place through one's taking pleasure in a feeling or a look or a gesture of receiving another person's love or kindness. Nothing was affirmative. The term generosity of spirit applied to nothing. It was a cliche, was some kind of bad joke. Sex is mathematics. Individuality no longer an issue. What does intelligence signify? Define reason. Desire, meaningless. Intellect is not a cure. Justice is dead. Fear, recrimination, innocence, sympathy, guilt, waste, failure, grief were things, emotions that no one really felt anymore. Reflection is useless. The world is senseless, evil. It's only permanence. Surface was all that anyone found meaning in. This was civilization as I saw it, colossal and jagged. So that's really the postmodern pre-Big Nine total. That's a total description. That's a total. He completely conveys the postmodern reality here in terms of in terms of psychopathy and an elite system and the way that those people in particular think. Right, it's totally psychopathic. Hence the title. But that's one of the things that the book does that the movie doesn't do. The movie becomes reflexively satirical because it's ironic, and you can read it either way. I talked about this last night in the Predator stream that when you're reading, especially when you're reading a literary art, right, or when you're watching films, you have the figurative and the literal, but metaphor sort of overrides the literal for many people, and they're not able to understand that the metaphor is grounded in reality and the literal. So both things have to work. So one of the things he makes clear here is that in his sense, in his psychopathic nihilistic sense, there is no more metaphor. They've reached a point at the end of time, at the end of history, where there's just nothingness for him, right? Nothing has no meaning, and nothing has any meaning, and everything is meaningless. Even the words that he's saying, it's almost like why bother saying the words? And that's total postmodernism. Now, I'm not saying, obviously, we don't agree with that, but I'm saying it's true in the sense that that's the paradigm of these people in the book. And that's one of the great things about the book. And I'll be doing Bret Easton Ellis's The Shards coming up, and I hope one day to be able to score a stream with Bret Easton Ellis. It'd be cool, to reach out and maybe, oftentimes I say don't interview the artist, but he has a podcast and he's pretty good on it, and he's eloquent. And I'd like to see what he has to say about his writing. But anyway, does that make sense? Does it make sense to you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's a really good point. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. Just you kind of touched on or alluded to this, is sort of the book and the movie are almost two separate things at this point. And it's interesting because like if the character of Bateman, even though he's not like in the movie, he's not great, but he has become kind of an anti-hero, and he's someone you kind of end up liking, even though he's this like awful person. But which was interesting, because I saw the movie before I read the book, and then when I read the book, I was like, oh, this guy's like horrible. Like there's no redeeming quality. It's like it's almost, and I think Christian Bale played it very well, but it's like, it seems like it's almost like it's the same character, but maybe it's because there's so much more detail and kind of like graphic, sequences in the book. It's like there's like no redeeming qualities to this guy. He's just like he's pure evil.
Yeah, he's a vampire, and again, he's not a literal vampire, but he's actually probably a hyper literal vampire, right? He's not a characterized comic book figure he's actually probably what Bram Stoker intends. I also did a Dracula stream, a kind of psychic vampire feeding on the life force of those around him, because he's empty in terms of his own life force. Everything he does is mimicry. That's why it's satanic, right? That he mimics and mocks and imitates a human being, but he finds no real human substance or any sanctity in human life, and he just feeds on it. Any sanctity that he finds, he wants to steal. Let's see. Yeah, I'll be doing that one very soon.
Well,
more Zadius. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. What do you guys think of Bateman and Gosling kind of being I don't want to say the doomer pill meme, but it's certainly taking over the zoomer sphere of all the memes, which I do enjoy. And it's kind of an interesting dichotomy, but compared to what Coot was just saying, he's just this terrible, awful character, yet all the memes are really good with him.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Coot?
I think it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because, and I guess it sort of comes from the movie, because there is no, like, you can't really have a physical sort of image representation of him in the from the book. But, and I mean, like most people don't read anymore, so people are just going to watch the movie. I mean, I think it's interesting because, that sort of character, even though he is sort of hollow and empty, there is something, like a lot of people, there's something aspirational about it. Like this guy, he comes from wealth. He's got more money than he knows what to do with. Like he's successful. He doesn't do anything, but he doesn't really do anything. He's got women. He's in great shape, and it's like so many people kind of aspire to that. And I think a lot of the memes are sort of ironic. And if you read some of the think pieces about them, they miss that. Like they don't understand that there's a level of humor here, and that it's ironic. It's tongue in cheek. Like people don't. I mean, well, probably maybe somebody does, but like except for maybe a few weirdo outliers, like nobody actually wants to be Bateman, right? But it's sort of that, it's sort of everything he has. It's sort of the pinnacle of materialism, not like in a philosophical sense, but like materialism of conspicuous consumption. If he has to have the best of everything, he'll wear a $10,000 suit when $1,000 suit would suffice, just because he has.
Your compliment was sufficient, Louis. Right. Valentino Couture. Yeah.
And then the Gosling, with Blade Runner 2049 and Drive, most of those I think are just like funny. And I think BLA, did we talk about this where you said that Gosling was actually like, oh, these people are losers who are into the memes, which I mean, Gosling, like, if you watch interviews with the guy, he almost seems, and look, I like the guy's films, but the guy
spectral,
like
he seems kind of spectral.
Yeah, he just kind of
Bale has said the same thing, which is He's just like, all these people are incels and whatever. I'm going to go drive my truck now. It's like, seems like they both are eschewing everybody. It's like, oh man, these are terrible.
Where did you get that overnight bag? Dragging a body. First of all, also, it looks like I have Jack the Ripper, Ian Holm, like Drino eyes here. I don't know why my pupils look so black here. They're not really like that. It's just the lighting. Hey, man, I've seen some things, man, and some stuff right now. But you guys made some good points, and I think that the thing with the Sigma meme is interesting because it shows. Again, people may not know what I mean by this if they haven't seen the stream before, but in terms of post-modernism, right, which is really just Great Reset era, you had modernity, right? You had modernism, 1901 to 1945. It's marked by the big event in 1945 with the two things that occurred, right? Then we have a clear split in the middle of the history in terms of artistic eras and cultural eras. 1945 to, in my opinion, 2001, right, with Big Nine, is the postmodern era. It's marked by those things. Then you have the War on Terror era, 2001 to 2020, and now we're in something completely different, which is an extension of those things. But I think that the internet thing is important in understanding that because, like Don DeLeo makes clear, and Cormac McCarthy, all these postmodern writers make clear that irony reaches a point where, just like Bateman reaching a point at the end of time, right? Where that's what DeLeo's Omega point is about. The Omega point, which is that irony folds back onto itself and it becomes meta irony. And so it's interesting that the people who are responsible for doing the movies and then fostering the memes, and that's like a coexistent relationship with internet. They want those things to happen, and then there's memes, and it becomes a mimetic culture, and then they deny the existence or the validity of those things, right? But it doesn't even matter. Who even cares about the opinions of the people that made the fostering of the meme in the first place? So there's levels of like alienation. Mm-hmm. And it reaches a point where it doesn't matter what they say, whether they like the memes or not, and who even knows whether to believe them, right? They could be Redditing just like everybody else who's making the memes. So it's almost irrelevant at that point. And then you reach a point where you go, well, what is relevant in terms of culture, right? Well, I guess the only relevant thing is that instead of the Omega point, we only have one real Omega point, and that's the Alpha and the Omega. So it doesn't matter what the postmodern Omega point is. It's fun to discuss such things and discuss like mimicry and mockery in a double fold over sense. But in the end, none of those things matter except for how we understand our own paradigm, I suppose. But it's interesting because the Sigma thing is like, it's also a result of the fact that for the past few years, and it's especially since Big Nine, there's been such a push in terms of education and culture for like emotions, right? Which is something that didn't exist for much of the 20th century in terms of like tapping in as a man to your emotional issues, right? In a stated sense, men are, we're going to be the way we are always. But what I'm saying is like, in terms of like, no, it's like no real men cry, that sort of thing. And now it's a reaction. It's a reaction to that. It's that no, men are cold. So it becomes these two things. And of course we grab onto the Sigma thing because it's funny and we don't have to believe it or not. It's just, it's funny and it's entertaining is my take, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting with the emotion thing. Just made me think of like, the driver in Drive. Is there sort of that shift where he's sort of this, kind of shy, but, seemingly harmless kind of guy, he's kind of doing his thing, he's interested in his neighbor, and he's just going to work, doing his stuff. He rarely talks, like he doesn't have that many lines. And then there's that scene where he runs into the guy in the diner, and it's just like, hey, like I'm gonna kick your teeth in. And then there's that infamous scene in the elevator, and there's like no emotional response to it. Like it's this sort of shift in tone from where he's this almost seeming like harmless character, and then shows himself capable of these extreme kind of brutal actions against people. And then it's kind of at the end, it's like when he's driving, he gets up out of he gets in that knife fight, and then he gets up and gets in the car and just drives away, sort of reverting back to like who he was at the beginning. But there's really nothing, even the scene in the elevator, like there's no emotion to the only sort of emotional reaction is he turns and realizes like, oh, this girl I'm interested in is horrified by, the fact that this guy's skull is now dust.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that, when we look at these guys, and there's something to be said for your behavior as a man in terms of this is what it's grasping onto, which is that when people are out of control with their emotions, and we all have done that, and we all, do that sort of thing, but in public, especially when someone is completely out of control with their emotions or lashing out in public, in the public sphere, like in person, it's a masculine and a manly reaction to not meet that level and to be a silent and strong type where I'm not going to let these things affect me. This guy's in public talking shit or whatever, and you just laugh and it doesn't affect you, and you sort of have no feelings about it. I think that's a proper reaction in many instances, because so much of society is out of control in that sense, and you just have to go. You got to put your head down and go do your stuff. But that's also a weird kind of counter reaction to, for instance, the way Mel Gibson is in Lethal Weapon. Right. But remember how emotional Mel Gibson's character is in that. He's always wild. The fact that he's in the office in public, like showing how he can break out of the straitjacket is a great example of that. He's been straitjacketed by society and by the his military service, and he has to break out of it by breaking a part of himself. Right. But it's also, I think that the watcher without discernment forgets to realize that he does those things for a number of reasons. It's hard to put people in a box, but because he is, he's charismatic, he's likable, he's dangerous, but he's one of the good guys. And also they made him that way. So he's out of control in those senses because they made him that way. Right. And so his struggle and his journey is to kind of get control over exterior situations and then get control of himself, because he has to use what he has. Versus like, Gosling in Drive, which is just cold. And in a way, that's also a counterpoint to the way that Bodhi is. That's the reason Bodhi is not a Sigma meme, right? Because Bodhi is emotional and kind of heartwarming, and he's like a human character, and he's supposed to be like this Zen version, this kind of Eastern Zen version of the way that the bad guy is, but he's also likable. And he's chill, cool, calm, and collected, but he also is giving. Now, a lot of that is for various reasons, but it's also interesting to point out that in Point Break, like, he's not manipulative against Johnny Utah. He's genuine. He's genuine in bringing him into their group. He thinks that he's genuine and he's telling the truth. But when he finds out in the bank robbery that he is not, that he's a liar, he uses Johnny Utah's tactics against him. Remember, because they go on the skydive, and then he says, "I'm going to show you something here." It's the great skydive where they're all brothers, and it's the Speed Star, and then Nathaniel in the background is even giving him instructions on how to walk out of his chute, how to pack your chute. And then he walks into this van and shows him the awful like video where Rosie has what's her face, Tyler, and he says this is going to hurt, and he tries to explain it in ways that he can, but he's even emotional in that scene. He's just trying to justify it, but he's using it against what Johnny Utah has already done to him, in a sense, which is hijack their feelings, but now he's hijacked this person. Does that make sense? I don't know. What'd Jerry say?
Well, guys, I gotta jump, but I would be remiss, BLA, you know this, if I did not give a shout out to our homegirl, Tamra. This is her favorite movie. She talked about this movie all the time. So hopefully
that's a good call.
Yeah, hopefully she will come across this later, and of course a big hat tip, of course, 3K, onward and upward. You guys are doing an awesome job, and I can't wait for you guys to finish True Detective. That's going to be awesome too. So,
thank you, Jethro. Thank you for coming here. And Jethro also has been instrumental in this. And so, thank you so much for dropping by and giving us your expert high IQ opinions. Really appreciate you. And thank you for giving a shout out to Tamara out there. Tamara is one of the old school OGs, especially of all the other places. And she's been fantastic. She's been a big support here. So I do hope Tamara, if you're out there and you find this, love you and hope you see this. So thank you, Jethro. I really appreciate it.
All right. Y'all have a good one.
Always good talking to you. Take care.
Peace.
Yep.
Peace. There was something, God, Jerry, you just reminded me, when you were here, I was just thinking of a Mersh. Now I forget. But I guess the other thing I was thinking of is like when Mersh goes, like any ignorant New Jersey Italian housewife says, irregardless. It's one of the best lines I've ever heard. So good. So shouts out to Mersh and Royce, big ROTC enjoyers. But I forget what I was going to mention.
Do you want to get into the end of the film? Because I think that final scene when they go to Australia is that I mean, just visually is, I was kind of blown away. I was like, this is kind of a fun sort of movie, but I don't know how they filmed that, but it's like it was incredible. One of the most just visually striking scenes I've ever watched.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a good point. So what leads us on in terms of the conflicts and the narrative? We have a number of motifs that we've talked about: cops and robbers, cowboys and Indians, surfers versus normies or whatever, class conflicts, good guys, bad guys, all these various things. But the thing at the heart of this, besides the relationships, is the 50-year storm, right? So when they're sitting after they do their stealth mission, they're sitting outside by the fire, and they're talking about what are the biggest waves you've ever ridden. And notice that there are women in the background. They have there are a bunch of girls hanging on to the group, but Tyler is the only one who really has a voice. And she said, and they say that what are the biggest waves? Makaha, Waimea. And then Bodhi says, Bells Beach, Australia. No way, Bells is bigger than Waimea, bro. Yes, every year nature lets us know just how small we are, right? And he says that the 50-year storm moves in cycles, and that it will be at Bells Beach, Australia, and I will be there. So this is the reason, really, that they've been funding their endless summer, in order to pursue this thing called the 50-year storm. And I think it's interesting because I was just talking about the major event in the middle of the 20th century, right? With the nuke cloud. And this is like a kind of nature's version of that, where there's a bomb goes off in nature and we get huge swells sent up from Antarctica, and they want to be in the center of the storm. They already, what's wild is they already are in the center of the storm, right? And they're about to reach the edge in the outer bands. And then at the end of the movie, we get where everything comes into a conflict, into a head. And man, I'm really lagging here on the video. If you're watching, sorry, there's not much I can do. It's just a connection. It says I have an excellent connection. I don't know why it's lagging, but anyway.
Looks okay on my end.
Yeah, so Johnny Utah gets this guy. So Johnny Utah, they released Tyler, who they've held hostage down in Baja, and they get away. The bad guys get away, and then and this is after the skydiving scene where Angelo has been killed. And the bad guys, they all get, like we said, they get eliminated one by one in the same sequence as when they were president, right? So it's like LBJ, Nixon, Carter, they all get smoked, and Bodhi gets away. So Bodhi, we cut to the very last scene, and we're in Bells Beach, Australia. There's a storm, just like you brought up at the beginning of the movie. And Johnny Utah has now got his hair a little longer. He's on denim, and he's walking along the beach, and he sees Bodhi standing there with this like kind of Mexican blanket on him. He's got his wetsuit on, and he's got shorter hair, and he throws the Reagan mask right into the water. And Bodhi says, Johnny Utah, and he says, he came across an unclaimed piece of meat in Baja. Then he found the body of Rosie. Right, seems he picked a knife fight with somebody better. passport of yours in Fiji, Sumatra. He's chased him all over the world, which seems to be probably something that he did on his own dime or outside of, this. So this becomes a personal quest. But we know that the Australian authorities are up on the road and they're about to circle. There's the one guy, we'll get him when he comes back in. That guy. But he says, I knew you wouldn't miss the 50-year storm. And then he handcuffs him. And this is after they fight. You hear Bodhi say, come on. And they finally fist fight right on the beach. There's no real winner there, but it's kind of a draw, but he handcuffs him. And then he says, I can't handle a cage, man. Just let me go out there. I'm not going to paddle to New Zealand. Then he lets him go, and he lets him go out into the surf. And he, like you said, it's a monstrous storm. And it's like the videos of that beach in Portugal, right? Where they have the 300-foot waves. And we see in slow motion, Bodhi crashing into the wave. So if you ride like lightning, you're going to crash like thunder. He crashes. They know he's not coming back in, but it's also it's off stage. It's left up to our imagination, right? What really happens to him. But we know he's been swallowed up by the thing that he worshipped, which is nature. And then Johnny Utah walks away, his bloody nosed, throws his badge into the water, throws his star into the water, and he walks away into the sort of misty sunset, right? And it's the end of the movie. It's the end of the storm. He walked into the storm at the beginning, and now he's walking out, and that's it. So there's total closure in the movie, really. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a great sort of scene. It's he kind of let him go twice. That was the first time where he had the shot at him when he was chasing him after the bank robbery, and he could have taken him out. And even Pappas kind of yells at him. He was like, "Oh, you're not scared." It was like he knew. He's like, you're getting too close to him, and so he could have shot him, and he didn't when he was running away. And so, he kind of let him go. And I think it shows that there's kind of that bond that even though they were sort of adversaries, there's still that. He's like, okay, well, he knows this is going to kill him, but it's like, well, that's what he wants to do. It's like that's how he wants it. To
Hold on, Matty, I'm roboting really bad. I'm gonna come out. I'm gonna cut my audio. I'm gonna come out, and then I'm gonna come back in.
Okay. But yeah, it was really interesting to kind of see that sort of bond, and we don't really know exactly how long those two, how I don't think there's ever, unless I miss it, there's never an explicit kind of timeline of how long this has gone on for. But there's clearly some sort of kinship there in him, sort of letting him go out into the storm, and yeah, it's almost kind of like it's almost as if Bodhi, not Bodhi, Johnny is sort of letting everything from his life go, right? Because we see he doesn't have his sort of normal uniform. He's got the Canadian tuxedo. He throws his star into the ocean. His hair is longer. And like you said, it's sort of implied that he's doing this on his own dime. And I mean, I think it's sort of implied the only thing he kind of kept, which was sort of from his undercover days, was Tyler. That was kind of the one thing that he sort of, I think it's implied that they, were together, but it's everything else from, because he even, talked about when he was going undercover, it's oh, I was always doing these things other people wanted me to, going to law school, playing football. Now, I think some of that was just a cover story, but it's sort of that all these things that, did he even want to be a lawyer? Did he want to be in the FBI? Did he want to do these things? I think no. And so he's sort of realizing who he is and what it is that he, sort of is meant to do and what he wants out of life.
Okay, hopefully my volume's good here.
Yeah, you're good now.
Yeah, so I sound a little better. I don't know why it sounds. Am I louder now? God, the volume is so crazy. I just go out and come back in. Now I'm louder, whatever. Anyway, I think that you make great points that he found himself, right? Bodhi helps him to find himself, which is interesting, right? A rite of passage. Because if he didn't really have parents, like his cover story, he does, which is implied. But if he didn't have if he didn't have parents, then Bodhi is the one who really helped him to find himself, right? And Bodhi ends up being not only a brother but a kind of father figure here. that he looks up to. And he's not really a father figure, but he is. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, my volume like really increased for me, man. I hate to give you the backstage stuff, but it's fucking crazy. But anyway, so I think that he helps him find himself through the storm of life. They are the storm. Somebody said in there. They are the storm, man. They're riders on the storm, right? Like a killer on the road. And then he walks away and he throws. You're right. He throws away. It's like he's gone through. Remember, he almost drowned, right? And this is his kind of second baptism in the movie. And he now is going to be whatever he is in life, which is probably a lawyer or like in investments, or maybe he'll just be a surfer. Who knows what he'll become? But it's not really even relevant. He had his life before the movie and he has his life after. And that's one of the good signs of the writing, because we have a total character. Like I think with a lot of movies, the sign of a great movie and the sign of the great movie, characters is that we believe they existed and now we're seeing a part of their life and their story, and then they're going to exist afterwards. Right. It's like when you come across people in real life, they go on their way. And the point of the movie is almost in a literary sense that it's the best words in the best order. We get this thing that crystallizes who they are as human beings. And then we get the soundtrack at the end of the movie. And it's just such a great fucking movie. It's so well done. It's so cool. It's hard to find like cool movies anymore like this. And yes, we've talked about the culture creation aspects of it, and those are important, I think. And they certainly play into what the movie became. But it's also, it's weird that it's about good guys and bad guys, and there's this kind of interplay, but that it's also, there's like a wholesomeness in the movie because it's not grotesque, even though the final bank robbery scene is so, the guy, I mean, they get smoked in the bank. Right. And so that's horrible. Hey, let's give a shout out to our friend Mixkey here. What's up, homeboy? What's going on?
What's happening, folks? We got our 3,000 followers, man.
That's right.
Oh my goodness. It's been a long time coming, folks. I've been telling everybody over here in the war room, we got to get BLA out in the public, and we got to get this digital minefield guy over here straight up out in the public. I mean, what's up, fellas?
What's going on, man? So glad you enjoyed us. Yo, this is Tech Noir Graphics from Instagram. You can follow him at Tech Noir Graphics. Yeah, so have you ever seen Point Break?
Dude, of course.
Yeah, okay.
It's funny, too,
okay.
because when I was cleaning, I was like, I might as well just wear what I've been wearing. And it's like, I got my bathing suit on with my anchors on it, got that dirty South feel to it. But dude, it's funny too, because listening, so many correlations to a friend of mine that used to be an undercover cop, like so many aspects of Keanu Reeves' character is like that moment that you guys are talking about, where it's like he's arrived at a point and he can retire now, which is not reality. Yeah. Like, let's be honest. Like, if an undercover is doing what they're doing, they just have to keep doing what they're doing. It's not really like true to reality, but it's put into the mindset of guys like my buddy that is an ex, retired super young. He had a very similar like kind of situation, not exactly the same, obviously, but he was undercover, he got injured, he sort of like fell away from that, and then basically he's just getting paid for the rest of his life. But I think in a lot of ways the propaganda that's in these films is so subtle, it's unbelievable, because you get so enraptured by like the character themselves, what they go through. And it's funny how even Keanu Reeves' character like sort of goes through this like amnesic process, what he was intended to actually be doing in the first place, right? It's like, and that isn't that the same thing that ends up happening with people that kind of like fall into the new age and like sort of give credence to that kind of mindset of just like do it that wilt and like just subjectively like only make it all about themselves and their journey and make it nothing to do with Christ, right? Because that whole process is just self-serving in every possible way. So, I mean, in the end of the film, it's like, does he really actually, or is he actually succumbing to worser processes that'll destroy him down the line? That's me now. When I was a kid, when I saw it, I was just like you, dude. Like, I was just like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen, man. This shit is like bananas. Like, just having that like gall to like go out and do things extreme the way they did. And it's funny because if you actually look up what they talk about as far as like the outline now as to what it's almost like they're kind of not giving it any power to like the extreme sports that the extreme sports was like well before it. But in a way, yes and no. I do agree with that. Like, it was kind of under the radar, sort of, but it like launched even further, I would say, with films like this. And it's like every movie, I would say, has like taken from Point Break that kind of like extreme sports mixed in with crime, and it's just rife everywhere. It's been a while since I've seen it, but as I'm listening to you guys, there's a lot of stuff that's like popping up in my mind that's just like, it's excellent. You guys are killing it. I also wanted to come on and just say congrats, dude. Like,
thanks,
seriously, man. Like, it's awesome to see you guys doing well, and I just wish you the best, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. And you brought up so many good points, especially the point I'll grab onto immediately is the thing about the subtleties in the in the propaganda and in the dangerous parts of the movie, which is that I think that's probably one thing for people to keep in mind. I mean, as adults, you can, it's also easy to get into the mindset of watching the movie for whom it was intended, like we said at the beginning, which was like when you're a kid. And I think that one thing to keep in mind is that when you watch a movie, the cooler it seems and the cooler the characters seem, you have to have the discernment to be like, yes, but what are the realities of this? And not in a way where you're like, yeah, but these guys are bank robbers and that's bad. I mean, that's, I'm talking about their intentions, the reality of whom they're affecting. Utah is alone. He has no one in his life. We don't know if he's with Tyler at the end of the movie. How could she ever be with him at the end of the movie, right? He must have lost. I mean, he saved her, but he's the reason that he needed to save her in the first place was because of her. Her life seemed to be, she was living her life however it was, and she's a surfer and she's young, she's young and she's living on the beach in California and she's got these friends who are dangerous, but like she's not involved with it. And he's the one who gets her involved. So he compromises her. And so when she's angry, there's the scene where she finds out that he's an FED, and she throws the badge at him. And it's interesting, that scene, because it's a close up from above. It's like a God's eye view of looking down on them in bed. So they're in their most intimate moment. She's face down and he's face up, and he's got his arm. She's resting on his arm and he's lying there. And it's like, we can see that he's a strong dude. He's in this romantic relationship with the woman, but it's weird how the sheets are black and there's a blackness. And that sort of, I guess they did that. They chose the sheets in that way because it reflects the blackness of when they first kissed, like in the stealth surfing scene at night. They're on the Black Sea, they're on a black ocean over the abyss. There's your word, everybody. And so now they're in their most intimate and it's supposed to be safe. But she's been violated here with his trust, right? He's lied to her. And then that's the moment where whenever we have houses in literature or film, it's always an exterior. It's always the exterior sense or the metaphor for the character's inner state. So of course there's a knock on the door opens and it's Bodhi and the gang, and he's talking to him, but lying to him. And we know that he knows that he's been lying, but he's forced through the situation to not admit it. He doesn't have his gun with him and he's got to go out with them, right? He's got to go and do what they say to keep up appearances. But while that happens, Tyler gets taken. And what's crazy is you also forget that the whole reason that she gets kidnapped is because they literally go up into the sky. They're not even on Earth, right? When Rosie comes and takes her, and now we see the video. And so I think that, it's like people are complex, and the great movies show us the complexity in these things. And you're right about the fact that when he leaves, he's going to suffer from this because Utah has learned. If Utah's learned anything from this, it's that he's no longer on the side of the guys he was working for because he throws out his badge. He doesn't believe in that system anymore, but he also can't believe in the surfer dudes, Bodhi, Nirvana, Zen system. So what's he gonna do? And he seems to be all alone again, like he was at the beginning of the movie. So it's like, what have the characters learned? Well, he learned to let him go, right? He actually condemned Bodhi to his own death by letting him go. So he chose the thing for himself. So he's not responsible for what happens to him, but he knows what will happen to him because of the trajectory he was on. So I think that's incredibly. I mean, look, we watch movies and we go, we want to see what happens to the bad guy, right? I mean, Hans Gruber at the end falling, in Die Hard, we see him fall from the building, and we've been on the tower the whole time, and we see him fall to his death. But of course, it also pulls back because he's a bad guy, and we see just hear the thumping sound, and we don't see him splatter. So we're kind of left out of that. But we know what happened to him. In Predator, we get the inhuman alien villain, otherworldly demon character who gets crushed and then blows himself up with his little nuclear blood or whatever. And in this, we see sort of what happens to Bodhi, but we're left knowing that even the way that it's filmed. I mean, Matty was talking about the incredible cinematic display, the way it's filmed. It's like he dives off of his surfboard into the water, like he's diving into his own death. And it's crazy that we don't even want to see anything bad happen to Bodhi. And that's incredibly dangerous, but also unique in a movie, right? Because he's a bad guy, but we feel for him. And is he that bad? Like, we know he is, and what he's been doing. And the thing with Tyler really kind of ruins it, for our depiction of him. But like, it's this world where the good guys and the bad guys are all mixed up. And that's probably true to life. We're all complex, but that we don't get a resolution that is typical of movies. I think that's really why it's so well done.
Yeah, I wanted to. I mean,
it's almost. Okay, good.
Yeah, I was going to say real quick, two quick things is that when she finds him, when Tyler finds out, she tries to shoot him, like, because he's laying in bed, and she comes in with his gun and like opens fire and hits the pillow right next to him. Because like she's so angry about the fact that this whole thing was a lie. And then it was I was just thinking about this. It was kind of interesting because the sort of the contrast between Bodhi and Johnny's. There's many contrasts, but Johnny is a very sort of dynamic character, whereas Bodhi is more of a static character. Like, there's really no change in Bodhi. Like, he's the same person at the beginning of the film that he is at the end. And so it's like you're just saying, like, how Johnny's kind of sort of alone again at the end. It's kind of like he starts one way, goes through this whole, and it's like he's the same as he was at the beginning, just in a different way, like, if that makes sense, which was, I don't know, I think that was a sort of interesting contrast.
We'll get him when he comes back in. That one Australian cop at the end has got the best one-liner for an extra. We'll get him when he comes back in. He's not coming back.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, the '80s has some of the best comebacks, like, of all time. I mean, freaking Arnie, what's that movie, Commando? Like, probably like the all-time most ridiculous.
Let off some steam.
Yes. And that's his whole career. And it's funny, one thing that I could say, like, just in general, like, about Hollywood and these types of films, is there's like a reoccurring theme that I've noticed, like a gradation, and certainly, like, you're the guy, like, 70s films, a lot of the times you would never get the resolve at the end of a movie. It's like the bad guy might win. It's not always going to be what you expect it to be. And, I feel like in different ways, it's like changed in variation over time, where it's like, now we're just given the answer. Now it's like, they show the preview and it's like, oh, here's the whole movie. But one of the things that I keep noticing is, like, this reoccurring theme of, like, Hollywood's like, have compassion for the anti-hero, have compassion for, and in a way it's like, kind of like, yeah, have compassion for them, but don't like succumb to, like, having compassion to the degree that, like, you're gonna, like, agree with them to any extent, or propagate the idea in oneself. You know what I mean? It's so subtle. That's kind of one of those things I was talking about, is like, for those that watch these movies and they're not really paying attention to these things in life, that, like, will reenact and act in different ways like those characters, almost immediately after the fact. And sometimes it's like the worst characters, right? And we've all been touched by this. I know I have in my own life, where I've watched a movie where it's like, heck, man, watching Twin Peaks, like as I'm like digging into the show, like, yeah, like there's certain things that like I'll catch myself doing, like David Lynch, like, like just like saying stupid crap out loud, like, hey, Coop, what's going on? You know, and do it in jest, but like, you know, Hollywood knows that people are going to like a simulacra, like take in these things and make it part of themselves. And, you know, it's kind of a good thing, you know, in a sense that people do have compassion for those, you know, anti-heroes, you know, or even the villain, but to a certain extent, we have to have discernment to disagree with it and be like, no, that's wrong. As cool as it may seem, the soundtrack and the movements, all of that, you know, I'm only saying that just for people that might come across this video, not anybody that's in the stream right now that's listening, because I mean, you guys are pretty sharp people. I mean, if you're listening to this guy and this guy over here, and not in any particular order.
People ask me why I listen to sad music. It's because it's the truth. I'm going to be brought real low.
Real low.
We're going to bring you down real low. You listen to me, you little bloodthirsty maggot. We're going to bring you down real low. Real low.
You boys were brought up like little pieces of shit.
Yeah.
Man, dude.
Oh my God.
So good. So good, dude. So good. And I just wanted to pop on.
That's what America is. Total schizophrenic paranoia.
Yes, indeed. Feed the needy. I don't want to derail, just like Jerry. I have not watched the movie in a while, and I'm not prepared for this, but definitely, you know, I just wanted to pop on, say congratulations, Matty. Definitely always good to hear your insight, dude, because you guys are killing it, man. You guys are killing it.
Man.
So
appreciate you being here. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
thanks so much. Thanks so much, Mickey. Really appreciate you being here. Everybody, give Mickey a shout out, and please make sure you go to Tech Noir Graphics. I'm gonna put my shades back on. Go to Tech Noir Graphics and support his work, and say hello to our homeboy. I think we're gonna get into super chats here. We've been going almost 3 hours, and my audio, I don't know if you guys can hear it. Hopefully you can, but my audio is robotic really bad. Everybody's on the internet right now. It's Saturday night, so Nixie, you want to stick around for a second? I'm just gonna go through super chats real quick.
Sure, man. Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so it's on PayPal. Shouts out to Sammy P. Thank you so much for that $50. Sammy says, congrats on 3K BLA. Keep on streaming. Hey, thank you so much. We're going to keep on rolling. We're going to keep on LIBIN. So thank you, Sammy. Really appreciate it. That's huge. That is big. Thank you so much. Shouts out to Anonymous here who drops $50. Big time. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Really appreciate that. Shouts out to Buster who drops $10. Says, Bazed, dude. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Love you out there. That's on Venmo. And then let's see, we got a bunch of super chats. So shouts out to Jamie out there, Jamie Henshaw, who drops $4.99 and says there'll never be another more 90s character than Johnny Utah. Absolutely right. Shouts out to Ruckus out there who drops $5. Ruckus from Boiler Room, Alternate Current Radio, TNT Radio, drops $5. Says, was there an increase? We answered that question. Thank you so much, Ruckus, for being here. Really appreciate you. Shouts out to Luchador 1764 who drops $5. Says, Utah, give me 2. Utah, give me 2. 2 bricks coming up. Since you've been here, you guys have accomplished exactly squat. Yeah. Well, why don't you astonish me?
Let's talk about buttered sausage. Talk about buttered sausage, where it comes from, what it does, why is it doing what it's doing. Get it out of my face.
Show's over, butthorn.
We got that butter and sausage, folks. Don't worry about it. Beauty's in the house.
Shouts out to Luchador. Shouts out to Hesher right there, who drops $20. Says, Bazed Analyzer, keep up the amazing work. Thanks for everything you do. Just to rehash, by the way, remember my name, the name of this channel. Shouts out to Jay and Jamie, because the name of the channel comes from one of Jay's old videos, the Nashville video where he was the Bazed Analyzer. And Analyzer is I specifically picked that because it's a meme name, because it's not even a word. right? Analyst is the word. So I thought it would be a good name. Sort of, we kept it pretty good here, you know, and so, you know, I want to thank everybody for being here for all this time, especially people from the beginning, especially my good friends here and who've dropped by, and the people who I've become good friends with, like Hesher, Ruckus, Jamie, Jay, all of our friends. Thanks to Tristan at Primal Edge Health, Chase, who's been on the stream, Jethro, of course, everybody who's really kept this going. And you know, it's been good. We're gonna do. There's endless books. There's not infinite books, but there's an endless amount, a number of books. Not even in the canon. Harold Bloom's Western canon has a limit on it. But we're gonna make our way through all of Shakespeare's plays. I'll be doing a Shakespeare play coming up soon. I've covered like 19 different Jacobean and Elizabethan plays. I've covered every era of Western literature. I've done Romantic, Victorian, Neoclassical, Medieval, Anglo-Saxon, modern, postmodern, postmodern, postmodern. I've covered foreign literature, French literature, surrealism. So I've done a lot here. If you haven't checked out the archives, go to those. You can become a member, grab a membership. Thank you also to Hesher. Let me pull up Hesher real quick here. Thanks to Hesher again for stopping by. There's Hesher.
Hey, man. Yeah, man. I'm glad I got to chime in here. Sorry I had to walk away a couple times today, but it's the Saturday around here, so I got a number of things going on. But, man.
Hesher, Tech Noir Graphics.
I saw that.
Hesher, yeah.
Tech Noir, what's up, man?
Hanging, man. Hanging. Love your stuff, dude. Every one of you guys, man. It's really a joy to actually be chatting with you guys and just actually be in the flesh. Well, so to speak.
It's great to see you, man. Yeah, we love your stuff too. I'm always excited when I see new drops from you, music, art, videos. Just man, your
appreciate it, man.
Badass.
Oh, my man kills it here. Also, big shout out to ipac.arts on Instagram, who makes the thumbnails. He's done a bunch of thumbnails for me and makes them for Jay, Sam Tripoli, a bunch of David Patrick Carey, our guy. Shouts out to Rooks G, who does our who makes music. He lets us use our music. Also to Time is a Flat Circle, who let us use music for today. His Bodhi ambient wave. Shouts out to a few of the members here, people who grab memberships. Game of You, new member, thank you so much. Being in Motion, new member, thank you. Shouts out to Hattori Hanzo, who's a great member, member of our stream community here, watching all my videos. Thank you so much. Track jacket is sick. I want one so I can cosplay BLA. This is my karate jacket. This is my karate 99 jacket. My sister was a third degree karate black belt world champion, and she got this jacket for my dad, and I took it from the closet when I last went to visit her. I was like, I'm taking this drip. And
that's the spirit.
Yeah, when I told that story, you know, the OGs will know, but when I told the story earlier about going to Florida here, Matty, that was at the same time I went down. My sister auditioned for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. She was like,
no way.
11 or 12. She was too small to be in it, but she knows a lot. I don't know if I want to say too much, but her prom date was John Wick's stunt double, the guy who does all the stunts for the John Wick movies. All of her friends are big in all these movies. They're all stunt doubles. And shouts out to my sister who's down there in Mardi Gras. I love you so much. And so this is her karate jacket. But anyway, shouts out to Being in Motion, who dropped $20 and says, twins like mirrors are symbolic splitting, and twins have always been a sign of impending violence. Congrats again on 3K, brother, killing it. Anybody want to address that? Anything about twins?
I actually, real quick, I'll just jump in. So there's a stream that hopefully you're down to do it. I'm not going to give too much away, but it has to do with the tunnel systems in America. And it's a multifaceted network of groups. It's not just the one
the one thing.
Yeah. But yeah, Midnight Meat Train, I just rewatched it, and it's a tough one to watch, like, you know, nowadays, knowing what's actually going on. But there's a ton of mirror imagery throughout the whole film. And dude, it's actually kind of weird because, like, rewatching it, I realized, like, the character, I'm not going to give too much away because I actually want to do a stream about this, but he becomes the thing he's hunting and actually like fully 100% throughout, seeing himself through a reflection of mirrors and seeing the enemy that he's trying to capture. And dude, it's so bizarre. But yeah, there's a ton of excellent imagery that's from that film, symbolic wise, and like, yeah, it's rife throughout Hollywood in general. But
yeah, good points. Midnight Meat Train, Bradley Cooper.
Cool movie. That's a cool movie. I've seen that.
Yeah, that was wild because
sure,
you see what Bradley Cooper became, right? Even before he was, what did he say? Sack lunch, right? Was it Wedding Crashers? He's great in that movie. But I did a stream on Gemini Twins. If you want to go back and watch, if you haven't seen that, Being in Motion, it was on the idea of Gemini Twins and mirrors. And we've talked a lot about, that's a good point you make, and a lot about mirrors and psychic doubles and becoming those things, especially in that's especially prevalent in the Wuthering Heights stream that I did. Roscoe P. Cotrain drops $50 Canadian. Congrats on 3K, Mark BLA. Keep on rolling. Thank you so much, and thank you to everybody who's gotten memberships out there. I'll be doing a membership stream very soon on the movies. So much more literature to come. Anybody want to leave us with anything before we go?
I got one more comment with regard to the twins thing. One of my favorite movies, and anyone who's been listening to Boiler Room for a long enough time has probably heard me mention this, but Dead Ringers by Cronenberg is one of the most disturbing descents into addiction and madness and psychopathy and neuropathy that you could possibly imagine. And Jeremy Irons plays twin brothers, and it's disturbing. I don't want to. They're twin. Okay, they are twin brother gynecologists, like super gynecologists, who get so twacked out on drugs and alcohol and this weird stuff that they truly believe that they are learning to perform gynecological procedures on mutant women and start creating their own tools. And one brother tries to save the other brother, and it is a very strange hall of mirrors into a really dark and weird place. So Cronenberg, I gotta throw that one in there with regards to the twins.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. Yeah. Cronenberg just recently did that other movie. I couldn't even watch the latest one that he did, which is about body manipulation and body mods. Cronenberg's interesting because of his different eras with that. You know, he went into History of Violence and Eastern Promises, and there's like the mainstream Cronenberg movies, and then there's Brandon Cronenberg, his son. I did an analysis of Infinity Pool and Possessor. And Possessor especially deals with that, but it's embodying another person or your twin. It's almost like you create a Gollum twin that you embody through a CIA assassination program in the future. It's very, very, very dark. There've been a bunch of them that I've done on twins. But anyway, yes, thank you, Hesher, for bringing that up. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Congratulations again, dude.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Everybody check out Hesher on TNT Radio Live. He's on every day. This is our guy right here. He's dialed in, Hesher, every Thursday, Boiler Room. Check out Alternate Current Radio. Thanks for being here, Hesher. Really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Love you guys. And
love you, man.
Thank you guys for watching us out there, you guys and gals and friends and foes, ladies and gentlemen. I'm out of here. I'll see you next time.
Peace, bro. Yo, that was Hesher. That was Hesher. Yes.
Heck yeah, man.
Mixky, you wanna leave us with anything before we head out here?
Yeah. Just a real quick shout out to Jethro out there. He's out there. Folks. He's real. Folks, he's real. He's talking. He's talking now. I want to give a very special shout out to my boy Jethro right now because I love you, man. I love you, man.
Right on.
But yeah, I just really honestly I didn't really know what to talk about when I came on. I just wanted to check it out, but it's been a joy, dude. I've, it's been a year, if you will. I think for everybody, it's been a long year. These last 3 years, getting myself out there quite a bit more, and I'll be doing some streams very soon, and hopefully, you cats will be gracing me with your presence.
Thanks, my man. It has been it's been a heck of a year, but this is the year of love. That's what we're calling it. 2024 is the year of love. And I'm just excited to see Ursher at Super Bowl. I can't wait to watch sports ball. No, I was telling Mick, I downloaded the new Ursher album today. I've been bopping to that. There's even a song called Bop. I love me some R&B. I love me some Ursher. No limit. Got that Mass P. No limit, baby. I love me some Ursher. So
you know what's bizarre? I don't know why, but maybe this has to do with the twinning thing. But Genuine and Usher for me are like the same guy. Because they came out the same era, the same time, basically. And I can't, for whatever reason, I know what Usher looks like, but they are the same person for whatever reason to me. What was that Pony song?
Give your honey, do it, riding my pony. That song I actually never really cared about that song until they used it in American Dad. There's a great scene in American Dad where Steve and the fellas are dancing to that song. That's great. No, the new Ursher album came out, and there's one line in one song. Right after you make your decision, girl, I'm gonna make my incision.
What?
Yeah,
dude, that's worse. That's worse than my cringe hip hop from high school.
That's worse than the one that I sent you. That's
even worse. Like,
yeah,
what?
No, but
that's like on the level of the 2 Chainz line where he's like drinking champagne on an airplane. I'm drunk and high at the same time.
Yes.
What about my favorite Lil Wayne line is everything goes around, comes around like a hula hoop. But anyway, so I'll be listening. I'll be watching Ursher at that event. But anyway, thanks, Mixkey. I really appreciate you being here, man. Thanks for stopping by. I love you. Of
course, man. Of course.
All right.
Love you guys. Take care, guys. Peace.
All right, peace. All right, Matty, you want to leave us with anything?
I think I said pretty much everything I had to say. But yeah, it was great. It was great getting to talk to Jerry and Jethro and Hesher and Mikhail, and huge congratulations on the 3K. You've been killing it for 2 years now, so it's great to be on here. Always a blast coming on the show, and people, if you haven't seen Point Break, I watched it for the first time today, and if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's a classic as far as I'm concerned. So it's
for sure
definitely worth watching.
For sure. Everybody go out there and check out Matty at Digital Minefield. I hope I'll be back on your channel soon. You're going to have some more content for us. Love going on there. And everybody make sure you watch Point Break. Check out the archives in the channel. Check out Matty's archives. If you want to support me, you can. Hey, there's Rachel. Rachel says, drops $9.99. It says, big congratulations on all your success. I have a house full of friends and family celebrating our baptism. Otherwise, I would be there. Andrew, Chase, H, Patrick, and Zen send their regards. Hey, shouts out to everybody over there, especially you and Andy and Zen Rhino, Patrick, and Chasky out there. Chasky, love doing our streams with Chasky. We've done a few of them now. Thank you so much. Based Homeschool Mom. That's Rachel Wilson. Thank you so much. Again, another good friend of mine. Thank you to everybody who's been here. We're going to keep on rolling. We're going to keep on living, right? Going to keep on LIVIN. Was it worth it? Yeah, if you're strong enough. That's about all we got, everybody. Thanks again. Really appreciate y'all. And we are out of here. All right. Peace, everyone. Have a good night. Peace.